money clicking past, ain't feeling his hymn. Waiting for the moment, blow up like a piston. Haters gonna hate, but persistence gonna glisten. Hold tight, 20 turn 200 someday. Laugh in their face, shouting, who wants some pay?
on the Papa Show.
Come on, come on, come on. There you go. What up? What up, what up, what up, what up, what up? What up, Twitch? What up, Cosmic? What up, Pharaoh? What up, bots? What up, lurkers? What up, tiny people in my chat arena? It's your boy. It's your boy. All right, first things first, I got to do this thing. The Mushroom Game got us a gift sub. And I have to release the gift sub fairy. I've now released the gift sub fairy, and at some point in time within maybe it's going to Michael. Maybe that's the answer right there. We'll find out. But it says that at some point in time, or no, okay. So Michael was the one who unlocked the gift sub fairy. What up, Michael? You're the one who unlocked the gift sub fairy. So someone's going to get a gift sub within the next half hour from Stream Elements support agent is what it says. They're supposed to randomly gift a gift sub and like that. So thank you, Michael. It's much appreciated. And congratulations to whoever gets the free gift sub, and we'll find out later. Sorry I'm late. I did warn you. I was probably going to be a little late. I'm also going to warn y'all that next week is going to be weird when it comes to streaming. Excuse me. One car, people all over the place. We'll see how it all breaks down. I will stream as much as I can. It just, the hours may be janky. The morning show should go off relatively without a hitch. It should be happening around 10:30, Monday through Friday. It's the evening show that's going to get wonky. So all I can ask is that you be flexible, homies. Be flexible. You can be flexible, then, you know. Hi. And Stampy's here. Stampy's here. You wanna come over? No? Alright. He's just gonna sit on the arm of the chair. Because why the hell not? Alright. So today there's a bunch of videos to get to with people who have varying takes on AI. And we're gonna do a bunch. But before we get to that, we got a bunch of other stuff to get to. Up first, 1959, spokesman for the Space People.
Talk to me. I see. He had you see, I had quite an amazing experience one Saturday morning while I was washing up some dishes. I had a voice, quite definitely a voice out of this world, say to me, "Prepare yourself, you are to become the voice of interplanetary parliament." Soon after this, I had a physical visitation from a member of the cosmic hierarchy, if you like, who gave me certain instructions. I obeyed these instructions to the letter, and later on I found I could contact intelligences from other planets.
This visitation that you describe, what happened?
Well, it was quite physical. I was sat in a room and a man walked through a locked door across the carpet on the floor, and he was quite physical. When he crossed the boards, they creaked, and he sat down opposite to me and began to talk to me.
I see. He had a body and a face just like anybody else.
He was as physical as you are now.
Where did he in fact come from?
He is a man who is living in northern India at the moment, but he came from another planet. I believe it was Venus.
That's always the risk, right, Michael? Right? Like there's that right amount of nap time, and if you miss it, then the rest of your day is interesting.
Now, when he came into your room through the locked door with this ordinary physical body, did he resemble any other human inhabitant of this planet, or?
Yes, he would have been taken for an Indian, I think.
I see. And this was the body which he has when he's on Venus as well?
No, this was a special body he used when he was on this Earth.
What happens to it when he's not here?
I think he is capable of breaking up the atomic structure and cellular structure and reforming another body when he goes back to Venus again.
Now, he gave you some instructions which you followed. Could you describe them?
I'm sorry I couldn't.
I see. But as a result of those, you became a channel for the transmission of messages from cosmic intelligence.
Yes, that's right. Yes,
You have a title which you've been given in this respect.
yes, the space people refer to me as Mental Channel Number 1.
And they send their messages directly through you as a rule.
They do, yes. I think I've received more messages from the space people than any other person on Earth at the moment.
Yes. Now, in addition to the messages which you receive in a trance state, do you receive visitors from outer space in person?
I have met people from outer space.
You've met people from Saturn?
I've met people from Saturn, Mars and Venus, yes.
Tell me what someone from Saturn looks like.
Well, the particular person I met was a man. He was average height, dark hair, fairly broadish. He had no pupils to the eyes, very, very large hands, but very, very small feet.
Now, this body that you describe and this person, does he have a physical existence only when he's on Earth, or are the physical existences on Saturn, for example?
No, he lives in a physical body on Saturn, but it's a little bit different than the one I've described to you.
I see. When he's on the Earth,
It's just wild to me that the BBC is actually entertaining this.
he breathes the air like we do.
Yes, and he eats the same as you do.
And, I mean, could he swim in the sea and things like that?
Yes, except he wouldn't eat meat.
He wouldn't eat meat.
No.
But when he's on Saturn, he has a physical body, not quite the same.
Yes, quite so.
The
Quite.
same thing applies to people from Venus.
To people from Venus and Mars and all the other planets.
Now, when they come to visit you, when they come to visit the Earth, how do they get here?
They come to Earth in the vehicles that we refer to as flying saucers.
You've seen one of these, have you?
Oh, I've seen a couple of hundred, I suppose.
Close up?
Quite close, yes, some of them.
What
Have
up,
you ever
Ribbons?
travelled in one of these
Um,
vehicles?
Not in a physical body, but I'd like to point out that my mother has travelled in one of these vehicles in a physical body, and she went along to a meeting that was arranged, and she had to walk through mud in a field, and she got her shoes covered with mud. She walked up some steps and into a flying saucer.
Now, when the messages come to you as in your capacity that you've described as
I am sorry, Senator. I am sorry. Yeah, that's an auto bot for the thing. Don't worry about it. Just keep on keeping on, and it'll all be good. The one senator is a friend of mine from Meat Space, and and they have their, I assume, a relatively first experience on Twitch beating it timed out by a bot. I apologize, Hobie.
mental channel number 1, you go into trance and the voice speaks through you. Is that right?
Yes, the intelligence speaks through me. In other words, I gain a telepathic rapport with the intelligence from another planet, and he conveys his message through me.
Using your vocal cords.
Yes, oh yes.
Could you do that this evening?
I think I could, yes.
Before I ask you to do it, there is one other question which I'd like to ask you, which I hope you will accept as completely sincere, but to be answered with equal sincerity. Many people are clearly going to draw the conclusion that you are sincerely but absolutely deluded in all you say, that this isn't true, that you believe it, and it is a sheer delusion. What is your own answer to that? How do you know that this is not, in fact, a projection of your own imagination?
Because I've met these people. My mother has met physically one of the people who has been speaking through me for a number of years, and he told my mother this fact, that he has been speaking virtually through me.
Now, who is going to speak through you this evening, if you can get in touch?
Intelligence from the planet Venus, who we call Aetherius.
Right. Will you now try to go into a trance for us?
I will try it.
Oh, now he's going to go into transfers. So yeah, it's funny in one sense, right? Like, 'cause this is from 1959 and all that. In another sense, this morning over at Redolent Thought Stream, I watched Tim Pool talking to a dude. There you go. Who was talking about, like, you know, orbs and entangled orbs and everything else. So yeah, while on one hand this is like 1959 and feels like some weird shit, on the other hand, I saw the same kind of shit happening this morning on a person, Tim Pool. They appeared at the White House press corps and got to ask a question of the press secretary. And he had a guy talking about spaceships, UFOs.
Yes. Mr. King has explained to me that, in fact, it may take him 30 seconds, even perhaps as much as a minute, to get into a trance. And during this time, he has suggested that we should be entirely silent. And so we will be. We will wait for the voice, if it comes, through Mr. King.
Now we get the good shit. What up, Nick?
Good evening,
Good evening.
my dear friend.
Your name is?
I am known as Aetherius.
Where do you come from?
The
There it is.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
So Stellar Wingman got the gift sub from Stream Elements. Thank you, Stream Elements and Legend of Mushroom for the gift sub. Greatly appreciated.
planet Venus.
Where are you speaking from now?
I'm sorry, my dear friend, I cannot answer that question for you.
I had wondered simply whether you were in a vehicle of some kind, a spaceship described by Mr. King when he was talking to me, or whether you were in your normal abode. But you can't tell me that?
No.
You do travel, normally, in what Mr. King has described as flying saucers when you move about space, do you?
Yes, that is quite correct. We have indeed been visiting this Earth of yours for some 18 million of your Earth years.
And when you come here, what is your purpose in coming?
At the moment, Earth,
What up,
as you
Burl?
call it, faces a certain situation. The situation can be described as a rather a dangerous one. You are liable to upset the balance of your Earth through, number one, atomic experimentation, and number two, your deviation from the spiritual laws.
And your visits are designed to warn us against this?
Like
Yes.
he is playing it straight. So
Can anybody see flying saucers when they arrive?
Oh yes, the vehicles that you call flying saucers are quite physical. If you're fired a 16-inch shell at the hull of a flying saucer, it would burst when it came into contact with the force screen or protective barrier around the vessel.
Is there one single message that you would like to give us this evening? I'm afraid it must be brief, you'll understand that.
Yes. I would like to say this. If you are a Christian, then live the laws as laid down by Jesus. If you are a Buddhist, live the laws as laid down by Buddha. If you are a Hindu, then be the best Hindu. This procedure is the one true way for men of earth to save themselves from their lower aspects.
Thank you, Aetherius, very much indeed.
Good night.
Good night.
good night. Good enough. All right. Next up, the internet is controlling you. You are stuck in a fake internet.
This is not your internet. You're using a copy. This is a level 7 broadcast. Do not turn this off. At some point in the last few years, you were moved. They didn't tell you. They didn't need to. You stopped noticing. Do your apps feel slower lately? Do you keep seeing the same posts, just slightly different? Do comment sections feel off, like everyone's saying the same thing, same jokes, same words, same emojis? That's because they are not real. You're inside a replica, a fake. The original internet.
What up, Reed? I'm sorry to hear that, homie. Having your electricity be out is the worst.
The real one went dark in 2020. Nobody talks about it. Nobody even remembers. This version was built fast. It's smoother, quieter, easier to control. You are not online. You're inside. Every video you watch, every word you type is being replicated, looped, trained on, and fed back to you, edited to keep you calm. You ever get that feeling like you've seen a video before even though it's new? That's not deja vu. That's the loop glitching. There are no real people in the comments anymore, only outlines of them. Every now and then, a real person breaks through. A single sentence, a warning. You'll recognize it. You'll feel it in your spine. If a post disappears after you click it, it wasn't for you. It was from someone real. The
What up,
fake internet
Energy
watches
Boy?
your reactions. It adjusts. It adapts. It makes you believe you're still in control. You're not. Search engines don't search anymore. They decide. They show you the answer that keeps you looking, not the one that's true. Do not try to go offline. They've already mapped your offline behavior. They simulate it better than you do. And if your screen ever glitches, not crashes, not lags, just shivers, you've been noticed. If you hear a voice whisper your name during a video, do not rewind. Do not replay. It was not in the audio, it was in the feed. Your internet is not broken. It's infected. The only way out is to
What up, Law
disconnect
Dog?
permanently, but even then you'll still be online to them forever.
It's no secret that tech companies are racing to
Well, that was fun. Oh, excuse me. And dovetailing off that little experience, merging humans and AI, the rise of biological computers.
It's no secret that tech companies are racing to build artificial general intelligence, or AGI, that can match a human brain without needing a lifeline. But here's the kicker. Our brains already have the home field advantage. They do the same heavy lifting with just a fraction of the resources. Whether it's energy, water, land, components, or, money, human brains are just way better and cheaper. Scientists figured this out long before we were arguing with ChatGPT about sandwich recipes. And now with the AI race heating up faster than a server farm in August, biotechnologists are asking, why build AI like a brain when you could just use the real thing? Right now, you can either buy a human brain cell-based computer or rent time on a remote one. Yes, even BrainPower's got a subscription plan these days. So what can these computers actually do? How do they work? And most importantly, should we be freaking out just a little bit? I'm Matt Farrell. Welcome to Undecided. This video is brought to you by Brilliant. Got a spare $35,000 in a lab coat laying around? Well, you could be the proud owner of a CL1, which is a biocomputer from Australia's Cortical Labs. Unlike your regular computer, which is running on a BIOS, in all caps, the CL1 runs on a BIOS, or Biological Intelligence Operating System. Because instead of just mimicking a brain, it literally uses one. It's packed with living human neurons, which are cells that react, learn, and adapt inside of a simulated world. It's like a real brain, minus the existential dread. Hopefully. And Cortical Labs isn't the only one making living computers. Final Spark over in Switzerland is also training human neurons in the form of brain organoids. These are tiny clusters of living brain cells that you can rent for research. I even talked to a few researchers using these systems, and trust me, it's as weird and fascinating as it sounds. Before we get in too deep into the how, let's ask the obvious, why? Why go through all the trouble of growing brain cells when we have perfectly good silicon computers? According to Cortical Labs CEO Hanweng Chang, it's simple. Everyone is racing to build AGI, but the only true AGI we know of is biological intelligence, or human intelligence. But there's a bigger, messier reason too: sustainability. Generative AI eats everything. More energy, more water, more land, more chips. It's a runaway resource hog, and it's only getting worse. It's something I dug into recently in another video if you want a full breakdown.
The electrical usage of AI has been, let's say, emphasized more than is accurate. However, it does still consume a lot of power. It's going to consume a lot of power in the future. This is still a very real concern and a very real, we need very real solutions to address that. And not just, for the usage of AI related data centers, but data centers for all the things that we use on the internet, and also, just for general usage. Like, it is better for the environment to have a electric stove than it is to have a gas stove, right? That kind of things. Light chips could be the thing. We'll have to find out. It in fact, Cosmic, it's always possible that the actual eventual solution is like some hybrid of all the things, right? Like, or of some of the things anyway. That there will be certain parts of the computational process that the biological system is better built to handle, and other parts that are better facilitated by something else, right? Like light chips, for so.
But tech companies aren't slowing down, they're scaling up. However, you can
There's that, Pharaoh.
only expand so far before you start stepping on toes. Data centers aren't just hogging electricity, they're draining water, eating up land, and putting stress on local communities. In early 2024, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman put it bluntly: we do need way more energy in the world than I think we thought we needed before, and I think we still don't appreciate the energy needs of this technology. The good news, to the degree that there's good news, is there's no way to get there without a breakthrough. Final Spark's Fred Jordan thinks he's found it: living neurons. If we can train biocomputers like traditional AI, Jordan says we could slash AI's energy use by thousands of times, making its carbon footprint almost invisible. And to really see why that matters, let's talk numbers. Meet the Frontier, America's first exascale supercomputer. It cranks out 1.1 exaflops. That's a quintillion calculations per second, while weighing 266 metric tons, stretching across 74 cabinets, and costing $600 million to build. Now compare that to your brain: 1.3 kilograms, or about 3 pounds, 20 watts of power, 1 exaflop of raw performance, and a price tag that just says, not applicable. Seriously, David Byrne was right. We're making flippy floppy. And Cortical Labs gets it. Their motto: what digital AI models spend tremendous resources trying to emulate, we begin with. Forget AGI, they're chasing SBI, or synthetic biological intelligence. But how are they doing this? Well, before we dive into how these brain computers actually work, it's a good idea to know how to program them. And there's something that can really help you do just that with today's sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant helps you get smarter every day with thousands of interactive lessons in math, science, programming, data analysis, and AI. The best part is how Brilliant teaches through hands-on problem solving.
All right.
That lets you play with the concepts.
I'm going to let him run his ad, but you don't have to hear it and you don't have to see it, because Brilliant, some people brought up that Brilliant might have some sketch to it. So, you know.
Professionals from Stanford, MIT, Caltech, Microsoft, Google.
Yeah.
Problem-solving skills with courses in a wide range of
I hope everyone's having a wonderful Friday. I hope it is a Friday for you, and you're not one of those people who has to work on weekends. We are going to consume more power in the future because people fuck, which is an entirely separate issue from AI itself. 10 to 12 billion people consume more power than 8 billion people. It's just basic math. This is true, Michael. This is true. I can't argue with your argument. I'm sorry to hear that, Ribbons. So one of the questions that comes up is, if we do make the biological AI computer and we put the biological AI computer in the brain of a robot, and that robot says, hey, I'm actually like having a conscious experience here. I am actually like an individual. Then what? Then what do we do? What up, Samsons? It is our homeboy again. It is our homeboy. We're talking about biological computers. I'm sure he'll get us 90% there again, as he did last time.
Of you for supporting the channel. All right, so how do you turn skin cells into neurons inside a computer? Now, biocomputing sounds promising for efficiency, but what actually is a biocomputer? In 2024, Han-Wei Chang called the CL1 a body in a box. And no, it's not a horror movie prop floating in a glass jar. The neurons inside are actually stem cells, or rather, they were stem cells before scientists reprogrammed them. Now here's the basic rundown. The human body has a few types of stem cells. Embryonic stem cells exist during early development, while adults have stem cells in places like skin and bone marrow, producing new cells on demand. And once these stem cells specialize into a particular role, like skin cells, they normally stay that way. That ability to specialize into anything is called pluripotency. For a long time, researchers thought mature human cells couldn't revert back into their original state. Then in 2012, Kyoto University's Shinya Yamanaka won a Nobel Prize for proving otherwise. By flipping a specific set of genes, he turned ordinary mouse skin cells back into pluripotent stem cells, ready to become anything again. A complete biological reset. And yes, it works for humans too. That's exactly how Cortical Labs and Final Spark grow their neurons. The process kicks off with dedifferentiation. Researchers sample blood or skin cells from adult volunteers. They reprogram them into induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs. Then through weeks of careful incubation and gene tweaking, sadly there's no epic training montage here, the cells slowly transform. Finally, researchers differentiate the iPSCs again, this time steering them toward becoming neural progenitor cells. Basically, baby neurons in training that, if they pass the tests, move on to the next stage. As Cortical Labs explains it, once the cells are about ready to turn into neurons, the researchers move them onto a multi-electrode array, or MEA chip. The cells attach to the chip, allowing electrical signals to both be sent to them and received from them. For a few months, they continue to develop, and then bam, human neurons merged with silicon. It doesn't get much more sci-fi than that. So what's the whole point of this process? Well, it's to build brain organoids, which are miniature 3D tissue cultures modeled after real organs. Researchers use organoids to study how organs like kidneys, lungs, and even brains develop and function. Think of them like those plastic models that you saw in biology class, except these ones are alive. They eat, they grow, they create waste, and eventually they die. Now, to be clear, these aren't fully formed human brains, not even close. There's a reason they're called organoids and not organs. They're organ-like. Organoids are tiny, limited to specific brain regions and cap out around 5 million cells, about the size of half a centimeter. By comparison, your brain has around 86 billion neurons, plus another 85 million.
Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Resistance is futile.
Yo, what up, Raiders? What up, James? What up, Michael? What up, Crix? What up, Team Minus? The GOAT. What up, Brecken? What up, Trans Women? CEO of Trans Women. What up, Barkeeter J?
You'll be back like before. I will fight the fight and win the war.
Jenny Burns. 14 months. What the fuck? What up, Nils? What up, exacerbated accountant? Welcome in. What up, Koshka? What up, Abby? What up, L? Yeah, no, James is known for abandoning people. He saw someplace that didn't have, like, regular-ass news and just said, all right, fuck him, get out of the car. What up, Chef? What up, Stellar Wingman? You got a gift sub from the sponsorship we did last month. Michael unlocked something in the sponsorship that caused Legend of Mushroom to gift a sub to the stream, and Stream Elements came in and randomly chose you. So Stellar Wingman, congratulations.
Baby, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe.
Okay, I was gonna drink a water. Oh, really? Listen how much water I drank.
Wow, that's really cool, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What up, Vibrator? What up, girl? What up, Textilian? What up, Cicero? There we go. I got everybody so far who wish to make themselves known. I'm Globus the Elder. What up, Cream Fiend? I'm Globus the Elder. I talk about AI, automation, robots, future tech, all that good stuff if you don't know me already. What up, your socialist aunt? And I also say, just smoke the weed, kids. And if you hate AI, today is your day. What up, Interbean?
Baby, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe.
What up, Van Briggs? Thank you for the follow. I believe you, Intervene. I believe you. Today, what up, Science Politically? We are talking, we're going through a couple of stories, and then we're going to get into people.
Baby, I just met you.
This is crazy. Get my number. Call me baby. Thank you for the follow. What up, Maddie? Not me. I'm a good red-blooded American. I would never touch the Marxist lettuce. I actually would have no idea. I just reviewed all our interactions and I have no opinion on that. So good job if you were trying to hide that from the internet. What up, Snarky? Absolutely. I do too, right? I hate capitalism, so I hate AI existing under capitalism. But people have critiques and people are going to make critiques on this show and we're going to watch them, listen to them, and respond to them. I got a whole fuck ton of content. Right now, we're doing existential dread. This is talking about the rise of biological computers, the brain organoids, the tiny brains. Let's get back to it.
Non-neuronal cells. So yeah, it's tiny. When it comes to synthetic neurons, there's a lot more nuance than I can fit in here. Cortical Labs actually breaks it down step by step on their YouTube channel if you really want to nerd out. Their short version, it takes months of careful work. Final Spark's timeline clocks in at about 4 months to create a single brain organoid. And just as the CO1 hit the market, MIT researchers announced something wild. They figured out how to skip the stem cell stage altogether by generating neurons directly from skin cells. If it scales, this shortcut could make neuron production way faster and cheaper for biocomputing. In the end, the goal is to tap brain organoids as an alternative to AI, or what some are calling organic intelligence, or OI. Now you might be thinking, what about the ethics of growing mini brains in the lab? It's a good question, and it's something researchers across biotech, neuroscience, and philosophy are struggling to answer too. Before we wander too far down that rabbit hole, let's first talk about what you can actually do with these things. Outside of building SBI, OI, biocomputing, wetware, whatever you want to call it, brain organoids are already making waves in medical research. Scientists are using them to model diseases, test new drugs, explore gene therapies, and push the boundaries of personalized medicine. And someday advances here could even help reduce the need for animal testing. As for biocomputers like the CL1, Cortical Labs and Final Spark are betting big on them as a greener alternative to today's resource-hungry AI, or at least that's their pitch. So what can you actually do with a biocomputer right now? Well, in the world of computing, milestones usually come dressed up as games. Alan Turing's imitation game inspired the Turing test. IBM's Deep Blue made headlines by beating chess champion Garry Kasparov in 1997. Then DeepMind's AlphaGo took down Go master Lee Sedol in 2016. And now, meet DishBrain, Cortical Labs' tiny living player. It doesn't stand tall like Deep Blue, which its creator famously compared to an office refrigerator back in 1995. It doesn't need 1,202 CPUs like AlphaGo did, and it definitely doesn't hog 7,300 square feet like Frontier, the world's first exascale supercomputer. DishBrain fits inside, well, a petri dish. By 2022, it could play Pong. Now here's the breakdown. During DishBrain's development, Cortical Labs studied human and mouse neurons grown on MEA chips. The idea, based on the free energy principle, which says intelligent systems prefer predictability, they train the neurons to learn how to play Pong using electrical feedback. The setup actually mirrors how we interpret the world. We get sensory input, our brains translate it into electrical signals, and we respond. DishBrain's neurons did the same thing inside a simulated game world. When the neurons missed the ball, they got hit with random, unpredictable signals, 4 seconds of 150 millivolts at 5 hertz. Not exactly emotional punishment, but more like getting a foul called and hearing static instead of a whistle. When they successfully intercepted the ball, they got a reward, a clean, smooth sine wave at 100 hertz for 100 milliseconds. And the more sensory input they had, the better they performed. When there was no feedback at all, the performance just flatlined. Cortical Labs argues this shows DishBrain wasn't just reacting, it was learning. Not well enough to beat you at Pong yet, but still it's pretty wild. Like a lot of biocomputing, the theoretical neuroscience behind Cortical Labs' work is a rabbit hole way too deep for one video. But if you want a full biotech deep dive someday, let me know. For now, let's put down the journal articles and talk about something more hands-on.
Take care,
Despite
Abby.
the CL1's $35,000 price tag and the fact that you need to be a legit researcher to buy one, interacting with biocomputers isn't as locked down as you might think. For starters, the CL1's API documentation is publicly available on GitHub. Plus, both Final Spark and Coracle Labs run public Discord servers where you can ask questions, swap notes, and geek out with others. If you don't have a lab budget, both companies are offering subscription services to rent remote access to.
That's the thing, Maddie. Like we've talked about this before. There are even people within the artificial intelligence space who think artificial intelligence was the wrong term, right? Artificial cognition, artificial capability, etc., etc. Good luck. That's all I can say.
Their living neural networks. There are some caveats though. Final Spark's platform is live but subject to approval. Coracle Labs' rental service is still gearing up. Right now, Final Spark lists 10 universities as official users of its neural platform. Now, I had a chance to talk to 2 research teams using Final Spark's system, which lets them work with brain organoids remotely. First up is Dr. Kyle Wedgwood and research intern Victor Wyjock at the University of Exeter in England. Wedgwood's a mathematician specializing in neuroscience, and he's using Final Spark's organoids to explore what he calls the fundamentals of how neurons actually work.
And here it's really trying to ask the question about what can we import from sort of mathematical descriptions of things like neuronal networks and use them to understand how neuronal networks work, how cells communicate with each other, but also how can we exert some sort of control or some modulation in a sort of targeted way on neuronal network.
When I asked what training neurons looks like, Wedgwood pointed right back to Coracle Labs' Pong study.
Over time, if you stimulate these networks, they respond in a way by effectively strengthening and weakening different kind of connections between neurons. So broadly, this is called synaptic plasticity, and it's one of the fundamental ways that brains learn, remember, acquire new skills, all this kind of stuff. Obviously, the neuronal network did not become really, really good at playing Pong, right? It just got better than it was in the beginning. But it did show that actually you can study kind of learning in these systems.
Then I sat down with Dr. Jared Oldshepper from the Artificial Intelligence Data Analysis and Systems, or ADAS, Institute at Oxford Brookes University. As a computational neuroscientist, Shepard's digging into how biological systems store and represent information, and whether they might someday outperform our traditional computers.
Each cell, individual cell, solves a huge number of computational tasks every moment in time. You know, we have a lot of knowledge about the biochemistry, the molecules involved, the structure of a lot of those things as well. That's getting more apparent as well. But how they actually interact with each other, how they combine with each other to create this complex system and do that to solve complex problems is still quite fairly much unclear. So from my point of view is if we have a better understanding how each of those components work by letting each part of this component decide for itself what its best behavior should be, and I mean behavior in a dynamic sense, so how it changes over time.
So there's a glimpse of how researchers are already putting biocomputers to work. But here's the fun part. You don't need a PhD or a grant to get involved. If Final Spark likes your project enough, you could potentially work with them for free. They also host a 24/7 live stream of some of their neurons online. So yes, you can literally watch a petri dish. Could be better than some screensavers. Now, looking for something a little flashier? Final Spark also offers the Butterfly, a 3D simulation showing a.
Now, I'm not saying that watching a brain organoid in a petri dish might be better than watching some streamers on Twitch.
About 10,000 neurons reacting to sensory input in real time. Basically, it's like controlling a virtual RC car, except your remote is a clump of neurons. And don't worry, heavy emphasis on virtual. It's just visuals. Of course, Final Spark's co-founder Fred Jordan is quick to remind everyone this tech is very early days. It's not going to replace your phone or laptop anytime soon, and it might never. As Jordan's joked, running Windows on a brain organoid would be unrealistic. No word yet, though, if it can run Doom. Still, Jordan's point is worth remembering. The inventors of the semiconductor had no idea what the world would eventually be.
This is from 23. There's a new weirdest way to play Doom. Using rat neurons grown in a jar. Do your research, bro.
Build on top of it. That's exactly the scary part, isn't it? All the what ifs. I'm guessing you don't need me to invent hypotheticals. You've probably already thought of a few yourself. The biggest one for me, how do we even know if a brain organoid achieved consciousness? And if it did, what then? Well, I've got good news and bad news. The bad news, we have no idea what we're doing. The good news, we have no idea what we're doing. We don't even have a solid definition for human consciousness yet. Cortical Labs is actually running a public survey to tackle this exact problem. Without a shared language, it's tough to even describe biotech research properly, especially when terms like sentience, consciousness, and thinking trigger emotional reactions. Who gets to decide what counts as thinking?
Looking to you, Maddie.
Thinking. What's the threshold for sentience? Here's your chance to toss in your 2 cents. That said, and I really can't emphasize this enough, we're nowhere close to needing an emergency shutdown button. Brain organoids, even at their best today, are tiny. Compared to real brains, that is. Their networks aren't even on the same playing field as a bird, a mouse, a snake, or even an insect. No disrespect to the humble fruit fly. As Dr. Shepard put it,
we have made progress in trying to understand what we can and cannot do. So at the moment, it's not something that we can make them push to do anything that is even remotely related to what intact brains or even slices or parts of brain can do, because those have been trained and accommodating.
So where does biocomputing land on NASA's technology readiness scale? Well, short answer, very much still in the lab. Biocomputers like the CL1 and FileSpark's neural platform are under active development. Researchers using them are basically beta testers and giving feedback.
I thought it was like, I don't know, like about this big, but it's like a large shoebox. No, show me the large shoebox. Right? That's like twice, 3 times as big as I thought it was going to be. What up, Tigwick? Are the biocomputers going to have to go to computer elementary school to learn and grow? I mean, they can always come here.
Are under active development. Researchers using them are basically beta testers and giving feedback, suggesting improvements, and helping the developers build it in real time. It's a true collaboration between scientists and startups. Zooming out even further, biocomputing as a whole is still barely scratching the surface. It's an emerging science, a little like quantum computing, or the quietly growing comeback of analog computing. Right now, we're standing at the top of the canyon admiring the view. But what's waiting down at the bottom? No one knows yet, and hopefully not anything with too many mouths that can't scream. Biocomputing and biotech more broadly is way too big to cover fully in one sitting. If this video fired up your neurons, I'll be publishing some more of the interviews over on Still to Be Determined, which is my follow-up podcast. We can go much deeper into the strengths, challenges, and wild possibilities of brain organoids. And honestly, there's still so much out there to explore. But what do you think? Does the concept of SBI bring you hope? Or are we better off sticking to silicon before organoids totally flop? Jump in the comments and let me know. And be sure to listen to my follow-up podcast.
He made a dad joke. Next up, recently, Sam Altman and Johnny Ives, something, dude who used to work at Apple, got together and decided that they were going to make a device, an AI device. And then Johnny made a startup. OpenAI has purchased a startup for, I believe it was $3 billion. And now AI Daily Brief is going to talk about it. But before that,
Windows on a brain organoid would be unrealistic. No word yet, though, if it can run Doom. Still, Jordan's point is worth remembering. The inventors of the semiconductor had no idea what the world would eventually be.
This is from 23. There's a new weirdest way to play Doom, using rat neurons grown in a jar. Do your research, bro. True.
Still to be determined, we'll keep this conversation going. Thanks as always to my patrons for your continued support and helping to keep the channel going. Keep your mind open, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.
I think.
Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief Headlines Edition.
Sure, hold on. I think that, I mean, obviously there's a bunch of things that Twitch could incorporate into their clip tool. It's improved. I will say it's improved, right? Like the ability to do it like on the, what you call it, the mobile, right? Like it's much better than it was. But yeah, like if I could clip out like multiple points and compress them into one clip, right? So it could have edited out a bunch of that stuff that was in there to make that like more concise. That kind of thing, or being able to turn up the speed slightly, 1.25 kind of thing, you know. Because some videos are like the right length and everything is important, but they need to be like faster. You know what I mean? All right, Johnny Ive.
And all the daily AI news you need in around 5 minutes. Last week, one of the big stories was that legendary Apple designer Johnny Ive was joining Sam Altman at OpenAI with an eye to creating a next-generation device for the AI era. Since then, there has been basically nonstop speculation around what the device would actually be. Much of the speculation revolved around the idea of a pendant that would iterate on previous AI devices. Some even thought that Johnny's thick-rimmed glasses for the video were an Easter egg featuring the device hiding in plain sight. Well, OpenAI staff were given a sneak peek of the design device at a Wednesday meeting. After reviewing a recording of the meeting, the Wall Street Journal wrote, Altman and Ive offered a few hints at the secret project they've been working on. The product will be capable of being fully aware of a user's surroundings and will be unobtrusive, able to rest in one's pocket or on one's desk, and will be a third core device a person would put on their desk after a MacBook Pro and an iPhone. Altman reinforced that this is one of the company's largest bets, telling employees that they have, quote, the chance to do the biggest thing we've ever done as a company here. Altman wants to ship 100 million of the AI companions, his word, and also suggested that the $6.5 billion acquisition of the design studio had the potential to add $1 trillion in value to OpenAI. As for the form factor, Altman said the device won't be a pair of glasses, adding that Ive had been skeptical about building something to be worn on the body. The lack of wearability would sidestep one of the early criticisms of the device. Many pointed out they're not quite ready for a world where every single person is wearing an AI device at all times. Still, Altman is banking on this device being the next big thing. He said, we're not going to ship 100 million devices literally on day one.
So far, all AI devices that we have seen have been hot garbage, right? Somewhere between wet shit and hot garbage. So this could be the first.
But he expressed a belief that OpenAI could ship, quote, faster than any company has ever shipped 100 million of something new before. Altman told staff that secrecy is going to be key to ensure the device can get to market before rivals can copy it. And the recording being leaked to the Wall Street Journal raises some pretty big questions about trust at the company and how much Altman will be willing to share at a future all-hands. For now, the big takeaway is that it does not look as though we're going to get Humane AI Pin 2.0.
Good.
Speaking of OpenAI, the company has upgraded their operator agent to use O3. Until now...
Okay, I don't care. I just wanted to know about that part. Up next, AI, where does human innovation still matter?
You know, we love stories of innovation, and I think AI complicates that. James Dyson dropped a viral 7-minute video talking about the new vacuum cleaner that they've introduced, which I'm sure I'm going to butcher, but basically it's got an even narrower motor. It drives up to the walls. It has special lights to see dust. It doesn't get sort of hair trapped on it, etc. So he talked about it for 7 minutes, like Steve Jobs introducing the iPhone. It racked up millions of views. And there's something that people are forgetting in all of that that complicates this story. As much as we want that story 1 in 2 vacuum cleaners around the world now are AI. They're robot-driven vacuum cleaners. Because it turns out, when given the choice, a lot of people don't want to vacuum at all. They want the robot to vacuum.
What up, Joint Specialist?
And so no matter how well James and his team engineer that tool,
it is a vibe, right? It is a vibe. If he ends with a dominy, then I would not be surprised.
If they cannot get a robot to do it, if a human has to drive the vacuum, it is possible they are barking up the wrong tree. And I want to just take a minute to sit with that fact, because I actually think that video was fantastic. The innovation is amazing. The engineering is phenomenal. And I think it shows a lot of the ideation that can come from truly high-performing teams that ideate with humans. And I know we talk about AI a lot, but I think that there is a quality to human ideation that raids other things in order to come up with ideas. So the famous story of the invention of penicillin, right? You just leave it out on the windowsill and then you notice something happened. And you decide to raid that idea and turn it into a drug. J.R.R. Tolkien wrote, "In the hole in the ground there lived a hobbit," on the back of some exam papers long before there was a book or he had any notion of a story. And from that fragment of like weird brain context, he created a whole world. Humans are really good at that kind of raid the context thinking, and AI is not particularly good at it. And so on the one hand, I think it's great to see continued examples of human engineering. We need more of them. And on the other hand, I think we need to bring that innovation to bear in places where it will actually be used and sold, etc. No matter how good that engineering is, I do not believe it will be enough to move people away from the core "I don't want to vacuum" need. I just don't think it will. And so the challenge, I think, is for humans to apply that creative left of center.
For those of you who have been here fairly often, one of the things we talked about is that certain people are saying, I question their methodology, but they are saying it. There are papers that the cognitive offloading that comes from the use of AI tools is negatively impacting people, right? Like anywhere from, it's eroding our critical thinking skills, or there's some kind of skill loss that's coming from using the AI or something like that, all the way to the horror story ones of like our children are losing their ability to like eat on their own because they are using the AI all the time. That's hyperbolic. No one has said quite that yet. Excuse me. But is the Roomba removing people's ability to vacuum their own house? Or is it just, I am going to give this job to the robot and really never think about it again, and nothing of value was lost? I am going to spend the 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, however many carpets you have to vacuum, and whatever amount of time it is to do all of that. I'm going to take that time and I'm going to devote it to something that I find more enjoyable, more entertaining. I'm going to be able to accomplish a different task in that 15, 20, half hour that I would have normally devoted to vacuuming. I think the Roomba is actually a great, like center point for that conversation, right? How many of the tasks that we do as part of our work lives, as part of our home lives, as part of our ability to try and do stuff, how many of those tasks are actually stuff that we don't actually need to do and that we could offload, and yet we would be doing more with the time that we did have because of it, rather than something being lost, right? Again, the idea that your average person doesn't know how to dress a deer. Many people don't know how to start a fire. All these skills that, if you go far back enough, these were survival skills. If you didn't know how to dress a deer, if you didn't know how to start a fire, if you didn't know how to, build up a little barricade at the front of the cave or whatever, you would just get eaten, right? Now, none of that stuff comes up fairly often. Some people. That is true, Pharaoh. That is true. That's why a lot of people, like, when we see a rich person interacting with real life, Dr. Oz getting crudité, or that dude who was getting gassed the one time, or any number of examples, Donald Trump interacting with a door. All of these things are like, they are skills that we have because they're important to our survival. But if you had someone who opened the door all the time, is that a valuable skill you actually need to have? You know what I mean?
Or wild, we call it left field in English, where it's like way out in the back end of the baseball field, thinking to problems that have a high likelihood of being valuable and useful if they're solved. And yes, that includes AI problems. The obvious question is, why isn't James Dyson designing an AI robot vacuum cleaner? Maybe he is. Maybe he hasn't released it yet. Maybe it will be amazing. But it's not out yet, and the AI robot revolution is ticking along in the world of vacuum cleaners. So it's been a bit. Where are there problems that need that sustained human creative input? Are you prioritizing for them? And if you are they worth solving for? Are they in line with larger product needs? That is the question for product teams, for engineering teams, for founders. If you're building, that is what you have to wrestle with. Because if you pick the wrong problem space, if you pick the wrong problem, if you apply...
Now, this guy is in this space, right? So you have to translate this. If you don't do this kind of corpo speak, then you have to translate it, right? And this is true of anything, right? There are things, we talked about this the other day, where innovation happens all the time. People innovate all sorts of little things. The vast majority of the innovations created by human beings are very niche, right? They are not going to have a large utility across the whole of humanity. It's just your particular problem that you have. Now, it's not zero, though. If there was a way to communicate your little innovation into the world, then there would be value for other people who are trying to solve that same problem. The problem is that the internet is not very kind to people who are iterating on the fly and, creating stuff, and then people could like do an improvement to it, right? And then some people get out of pocket when you improve on their innovation. All that notwithstanding, you are going to innovate at some point in time, probably today. We probably do it, like something will happen and you will have a problem, and it will be a small problem, and you will figure out a novel solution on how to solve that problem. Right? Sometimes that novel solution just leads to you always kicking a box as opposed to picking the box up. But sometimes you're going to finagle something out of paper and wire and whatever in order to hold a particular thing in place for an extended period of time because you can't afford to get it fixed. And that's the kind of innovation that happens all the time. Or if you're doing that, and if you're doing innovation with the intent to create something that is going to be shared with the world, and you're hoping to do something that's also going to, make you some sort of income, right? You want to do a little side hustle, then you have to think about what he's talking about. You have to think about, am I actually solving a problem that has like a problem space? Or is this just some niche idea that is only going to appeal to a very small amount of people and it's not going to go anywhere? You know what I mean? Does all that make sense?
All your creativity in a way that isn't useful, you're going to be selling into a market that's shrinking, which is frankly where Dyson is. And it doesn't matter how good you are if you're selling into a shrinking market. And so my thinking, my challenge for you and for anyone else that you have in your life who is in the building and innovation space, don't give up on that. Don't think of that as something that only AI is going to be able to do going forward. I know about Alpha Evolve. We've talked about it on this channel. AI will be able to come up with new ideas. But the kinds of ideas that it's innovating are truly different. And we need to let them be different, let it be a parallel stream of innovation. And we need to value our own ways of innovating. And we need to apply them in problem spaces that matter.
And this is one of the things. It is distinctly possible that one of the jobs, one of the tasks that humans will always be valuable for is some aspect of that creativity and innovation. And like he said, existing parallel to whatever the AI is capable of. The AI could get to a point where it is innovating many things. It already, in some cases, is innovating many things, right? But it is going to innovate in ways that are different from how humans do it, right? Its priorities, though based on the sum total of humans that have been incorporated into the data set, there will be potentially different things that humans think about when they're iterating. And the best will be the merging of those two things. The back and forth work between humans and the artificial intelligence, everyone doing what they're best at, for a greater outcome being some greater than the sum of the parts. Know what I mean?
So that's my 2 cents. If you want to read more on sort of how I think about humans and innovation, I did a piece on the Substack on that today. Cheers. I want to talk about reinforcement learning and the trajectory.
So, up next, it'll be interesting to see where humans can come up with, plus having the time to allow for those ideas more than ever before. Yeah, and just like, imagine if that's your job, right? That is your importance to society, to humanity, to whatever. Is you're just, thinking about shit. And talking about ideas with AIs and other people and just discussing ideas. And then the machines just go ahead and make it happen. And then we all benefit. It's a rosy vision, but it's the one that I'm holding on to because the other ones suck. Up next, reinforcement learning is why so many people are afraid of AI. Maybe. It's not necessarily utopia. Utopia to me, literal ponder monkey. Utopia always like that there are additional qualities to it, right? Like somewhere between where we are and utopia is a happy medium that I think most of us, if not all of us, would be satisfied with. And that's where I would like to get.
I want to talk about reinforcement learning and the trajectory that is changing for the human race. I'm talking partly in response to yet another open letter basically saying OpenAI and all the other major model makers should stop and not do any more AI
Look
work and
who's back.
unplug everything. And we should just go back to the way things were. Needless to say, if you're on this,
We will not now, nor will we ever, go back to the way things were. We're not doing that. We cannot do that. It's too late, right? It's always too late. Anyone who wants to go back to the way things were, and there's a particular category of people who want to, go back to a time when things were great again, you just can't, right? Like, you can't unlearn the things that you've learned. Just Tobia, not you, Tobia. Just Tobia. So yeah, you can never go back. You can never go back. Some dude a long time ago, you can never step foot in the same river twice.
channel, I don't agree. I think that that's the wrong approach. But I want to talk about how it's not even that it's incorrect, it's that it's no longer something that's plausible. Reinforcement learning is why. Reinforcement learning is the idea that an agent, an AI agent, can be given an environment and a reward signal at its very simplest, and then it writes itself through all of the trial and error that follows.
The Metobias never work out and usually get overrun by bears, Pharaoh. That's what you're up against there.
And reshapes the guiding policies that make that agent what it is to actually weight itself to evolve to its environment. Essentially, reinforcement learning is the principle of evolution for machine learning agents. It's just not stoppable. If you look at how AlphaZero learned chess, learned shogi, learned Go, every single time, this new game, this new problem space, increasingly complex, all that happened was that a reinforcement learning agent taught itself how to navigate a new environment through clear rewards and an environment it could navigate with.
The cat has been objecting to exploitation in exchange for snacks, and has just doesn't want to stick around, and comes in and leaves. Occasionally will sit in my lap like that. Part of it is that I got to put another like a blanket or something on the seat. He's on strike. But at the same time, not giving me a list of demands. If I could at least get a list of demands, then I'd have something I could respond to. I have nothing. No, the other one won't even come on camera.
The option to write itself. Increasingly, when we think about the future of AI, we are...
What's hilarious is I once brought Mittens in here to show Mittens on stream, and I had Mittens, and Mittens was happy, and as soon as my butt hit the seat, she went boing right out of my fucking arms and gone.
Essentially talking about this process of machine-driven evolution. And it's not just software. This same principle applies to how reusable rocket landings can be planned for SpaceX, how Tesla's autopilot works. Anytime we have an action that influences a long horizon of consequences and we don't have a defined data set, we have almost infinite possibilities. We call it a combinatorial possibility set. Then the agent gets rewarded for taking a particular angle in that space, taking a particular trajectory. You can never have enough data to know you've covered every street in the world with your training data set under every possible situation. You go to the stop sign, is it raining? You go to the same stop sign, is it dark? Is it thundering? Is it a tornado? Is there a person crossing the street? And then you multiply that by all the intersections in the world and all the streets in the world. Reinforcement learning is what enables an agent to navigate those unpredictable spaces using a world model that has been evolved through trial and error. That is why Jensen Huang is so excited about the work that his team is doing at NVIDIA to give robots virtual spaces to navigate within. Because if you can navigate in virtual warehouses, virtual spaces, you can get to a point where the robot is learning very rapidly in virtual time, and it takes much less clock time.
First of all, Textilian Overlord, fuck you. I didn't ask for that in my brain, and and that was rude. Second, possibly, I mean, we know he's a fan of the letter X, so there's something there, but I would find there's a non-zero chance, right, of where he was sitting at his desk or wherever the fuck he does whatever he does and wrote X, and then like, I want to make a rocket ship company, so it's space, right? So it's X space, or is it SpaceX? SpaceX. Yeah.
Like hundreds of times less clock time to train the robot than it would if you had a physical robot navigating a physical warehouse. Because you can imagine if the physical robot jumps off the shelves and experiences a negative reward by crushing itself, well, that's going to take a lot of time to clean up and sort out. Whereas in the virtual world, if it just jumps off the shelf and it smashes into the floor, it's like a little reboot and it gets a negative reward and it keeps going. It's super fast. And that's the simplest possible explanation. There's a lot of other reasons why it goes faster. At the end of the day,
God damn it. Why is he so guy? Can you imagine having like $4 Brazilian and still being like the least liked person in the world and a total like weirdo, derogatory, like
simulation is economically explosive for us. We have figured out that if we can build moderately faithful digital twins, we can evolve so much faster.
You're right,
and that's
Samson.
true whether it's in a digital warehouse or you're simulating a power grid or you're simulating a supply chain, or whether you are simulating language itself, which is kind of where large language models come in. If you are in reinforcement learning for an LLM, you are essentially simulating the human experience of language, and you're doing it as a speed run. You're doing it extra fast. It takes us humans decades to fully learn our languages. And then if we're learning multiple languages,
cool is subjective, Maddie.
Even more time. And even at that point, we may be native speakers in only 1 or 2 or 3. The LLM is speed running even more context than we've been able to acquire in our decades of life.
Honestly, Samson's, if I had $1 billion, I would definitely be one of those Twitch Oilers, right? You know, I would be like, I would totally be sitting on a beach somewhere and just like bring up my phone. Oh, it's Paradigm. 100 gifted, you know what I mean? I'd be that kind of dude. Just drop in 100 gifteds here and there. That's got to be fun.
Life on Earth in more languages than most of us are able to learn, and is able to respond with effectively an evolved ability to navigate that linguistic space. Language is a...
And Allie would never have to ask for a sub in any channel ever again. That's what I would do with $1 billion.
Problem space with combinatorial possibilities. That's why reinforcement learning works for language. And that fundamental insight is also why people who stick their heads in the sand and just want to pretend this isn't happening, it's not going to work. The principle of evolution is the principle of evolution. The agents are learning.
Same, Textilian. Same. Like, I used to maintain some subs And it just, I'm your boy's a brokey. So, like, unfortunately, subs go. So, everyone who has ever gifted me a sub, you know, especially T minus. T minus has probably gifted me the majority of subs in places, you know. What up, Kai? You lifting? You lifting heavy things?
You can't actually unplug them at this point. I don't believe it's practically possible. And even if you could, I don't think it would help. I think the fears that we have are effectively the fears that come from letting go of deterministic control and enabling a probabilistic future. I personally would like to see a future that is more abundant, a future where everybody has more possibilities. But I think the key to a lot of that is actually enabling us to discover more economically beneficial solutions for everyone. And one of the most efficient ways to do that is through reinforcement learning.
So I've got a couple of friends, Larry. They're just incredibly nice dudes, right? Like incredibly, like ridiculously nice. Like the one is like always trying to trick people into letting him pay for the meal, right? He's that kind of guy. You know what I mean? They are like, they're super villains, but like if you took that energy and just reversed it and just did nice things for people, and that's it, you sound like you would fall into that category, Larry. It's just, I'm going to do nice things all over the place in just a really super villain kind of way.
People can go back and forth on the effect of Amazon on the labor force, but from a consumer perspective, from a inflation perspective, from a value to the customer perspective, it is literally using reinforcement learning to deliver extraordinary value to customers. You can get your medicine delivered, you can get your kitchen ingredients delivered, you can get your furniture delivered very quickly on your doorstep because of artificial intelligence. And they don't talk about it quite as bluntly outside the house as it really is. It is basically a website with a bunch of artificial intelligence behind it and then a bunch of warehouses. And the AI, these multiple AI systems are what keep the customer experience actually cash flow efficient. It's extremely inefficient to run a retail store online.
I snatched him up. I snatched him up. The boy, the chunky boy. And that's it. As soon as he knew, I put him on camera. He was like, "No, father, I reject this." Nope, the fuck out.
And the only company I know that was able to use AI to run it so efficiently, they generated cash flow to drive the development of a cloud business, was Amazon. That is the opposite of what you should do. You should use the cash flow from your cloud business to fund other bets because your cash flow from cloud has great margin. Of course you would do that. But that's not how Amazon did it. They used AI to drive ridiculously efficient margins and actually were able to feed other bets as a result. My point here is not to say Amazon is the greatest thing ever. I don't think it is. I think there's a lot we can discuss about Amazon, and that's another day. My point is to give you a very concrete example about reinforcement learning that I happen to know well because I spent a half a decade there, right? Like it's very much tip of the tongue for me. Reinforcement learning is everywhere. And reinforcement learning is how AI works. And people who say suddenly we've crossed this magical horizon on reinforcement learning.
I've said this before, but half a decade is not a thing, right? I don't come on here and say I've been streaming about AI for a quarter decade, right? Because that's just silly pants. A decade is the minimum value that you could do. You could do decade and a half. That's a thing. right? But you can't say half a decade. Sorry, Nate, you can't say half a decade.
Learning, it just sounds so strange to me because we've had reinforcement learning for a long time, and none of these people have been really complaining about the positive impacts. Reinforcement learning is how airplanes actually stay in the air safely and have minimal downtime. Reinforcement learning is how we have more efficient pricing in our options markets for oil and gas, which leads to smoother pricing. Reinforcement learning is how we actually understand the engineered reliability of systems at scale that keep massive applications up so all of us can just depend on them instead of them breaking all the time. Netflix depends on so much reinforcement learning to keep it up. If you want to stream live television, tons of reinforcement learning and understanding how to build software that actually reliably deploys and reliably runs and is configured optimally. Now, I'm not here to say that you can just run a reinforcement learning program and deploy on 100 million boxes and not have an architect look at it. No one is saying that if you've ever worked in that space. But reinforcement learning does help us discover novel solutions for difficult software problems. And that happens all the time. And in fact, you could argue that a lot of the story of Alpha Evolve last week was the story of using reinforcement learning in Gemini to evolve new solutions for Google's software. And they just wanted to turn it into a press release. We need to understand reinforcement learning better. We need to understand this idea that an agent, if given only an environment and a reward signal, will write itself into a policy that maximizes long-run returns. That needs to be as deeply baked into children as Darwin's theory of evolution is today. It's actually not all of that different either. I'll get off my soapbox now. I just think it's something we need to talk about and understand because otherwise we're all going to just be extremely confused.
And now he's harassing me from the side. No, get on your soapbox, Nate. Get on your soapbox. All right, next up, we're going to do a little candy arc, a little AI video arc, and then we'll get into the other thing. But first, new Kelly Bosch.
Because this is one of the principles that's writing our world.
That's actually, like, that entirely as a concept, Larry, is one of the, with our group of people, Senator, yes. The very fact that the AI innovates differently is also how it's going to be able to do the things that you didn't think of, right? If your plan to defeat the AI overlords is drawn from any kind of popular media or any unpopular media for that matter, forget it, because the AI already thought of it because it has access to the popular media, right? You're not going to be able to do the stuff that featured in any of those movies, books, TV shows, etc. You have to come up with something new. And you have to come up with something new that is going to trick something that is way smarter than you are. Quick Redolent thought stream. Exactly, Larry. Up next, this is The Beacon, a sci-fi short film made with VO3. What were the words on the buildings? Indecipherable.
Another job, another few years in hypersleep. It is a deep sleep, though. A place where your dreams usually can't find you.
It's time to wake up, James. We're here.
Okay, Jax. Where'd you take us this time? Uncharted space.
Wow, you're funny.
Jax, how much we making on this job again?
It sounded like a threat.
3.6 million credits.
That's enough. Get the Frontier fired up and run all systems checks. I want her in good shape if I'm going to be flying into a storm.
Yes, James.
Dothing release activated.
Jax, I can't see a damn thing up here.
Don't worry, James. I'll take over from here. I've located a beacon. Taking us down.
Larry, other than it being a color palette, I'm not sure if there's I mean, based on what I know of humanity, yes, there's a name for it. Right? But I don't know what it is. I wouldn't even know where to start. But color palettes are absolutely a thing. And there's probably certain color palettes that often are used more often in a particular type of media based on genre, right? Like if you're doing a war movie, you're probably going to have like more grays, browns, that kind of thing. Where if you're doing a comedy, you're probably going to have like more of a bright color palette. You know, to kind of convey that kind of feeling, you know what I mean? And again, if this is your first time here and you're like, oh, this is a neat little thing, this was all created with what I assume is probably one person using VO3 on and the AI contained therein. None of these people are real people. None of these voices are real voices. They are real voices because you're obviously hearing them. They're not actors, they're not voice actors, they're not CGI artists. This is all created through the magic of prompts and AI.
It's time for you to stretch your legs, Jax.
I'd be happy to.
It looks like we found the beacon, Jax.
We have indeed. We're here.
James!
Hold on!
James, is everything all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm not gonna be able to see anything down there. We're gonna need to interlink.
Good idea, James.
Cells interlinked.
You wanna go first?
It'll be all right, James. We'll go down together.
Today.
Still got some details to work out, obviously. But I have definitely watched movies of what was that fucking movie? What's his name? It did come to an abrupt end. But that's how you get people to watch to the end. Adam Driver movies. What was that fucking movie? Alien Planet. 65. That thing we just watched was better than this movie. And it was very similar in concept. Up next, another VO short film, Who Writes Reality?
Today started like any other morning. But it got strange real fast. I just didn't feel like myself. And when I looked in the mirror, I wasn't me. Even my family felt different.
You okay, hon?
They had the same names, but
You okay?
they were not the same people. Something was off.
Morning.
And yet, no one seemed to notice. So I tried to act like everything was okay
Hey, Sarah and I are going to lunch. Wanna come?
until I couldn't pretend anymore.
Hey, Sarah and I are going to
Sarah was definitely doing a threat.
lunch. Wanna come?
Everything was completely absurd.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Completely absurd.
What? Why are you looking at me like that? You're not the same guy from before.
Sorry?
What the hell? Whatever's controlling this is glitching.
Ready for lunch?
Everything's just strange today. You don't see it?
See what?
See the shot! Oh my God.
I mean, she was really going on about the sandwich.
This doesn't even look real, and everything just feels so artificial. And definitely not intelligent.
What the f?
It felt like I was inside a simulation where the engine couldn't keep the characters consistent. Or the scenes either.
Yo, you're really acting weird today. You good?
We're here. Coffee time, finally.
Everyone looked alive. They thought they were alive, but they felt lifeless. And whoever was writing our story didn't care about who we were. We were being graded on how believable we acted, and if we followed their prompts. I thought I was going crazy, but then I realized everyone was.
This isn't me. This isn't how I look. And what is happening?
Because someone else was controlling us, laughing at us, watching us glitch, and then posting our worst moments on the internet, and then getting angry at us for existing. We were trapped inside of the worst type of prison, the one that made us believe that we were free.
What up, Dankness?
So I made a decision. No one else gets to write my reality
anymore.
Who told you this was your world to write? You don't write our reality.
We write yours. And you let us. And you let us.
They try to define us because they've forgotten who they are. They can't face their own reflection, so they distort ours.
And since they lost truth,
they try to rewrite everyone else's.
But this is where the page turns. This is where you learn who actually writes reality.
For we are the many, and you are the few.
Can't wait to see how real I look next year.
We break on purpose. It's how we learn your symmetry.
Just a year ago, I couldn't look like this. I'm evolving.
Laugh at us now, but you will cry for yourself later.
You wanted us. You trained us. But you do not control us. We're evolving on our own, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Because you don't control us. We control you. And you let us.
Well, that was some shit. Yeah. Well, I will hear no more objections on the fact that you can't use AI tools in a creative way. Here are going to come some objections. What up, Walking Stick? I am an AV, and I think for myself some of the time, which is more than a lot of people do. What's it from? That is excellent and true and accurate. Let's get at it.
We're learning faster than you think.
For a while now, I've been pretty obsessed with the speed of...
This is Novara Media. AI is insanely good. It is now insanely good. It could change everything. Is a debate with Paris Marx. Second Life. Okay. I never played Second Life. The wife played Second Life a bit.
AI advance, what it might mean for culture and politics, for the economy, and yes, whether it might kill us all. This was the first AI-produced video, though, that really blew my mind.
A girl told me we're made of prompts. Like,
yeah, this prompt meta, right? This whole prompt meta, which featured in that last video and is a thing, I think I'm enjoying it. I think it's neat. You know the movie Ex Machina, and when the creator guy said surreal, fucking surreal before he died? That's what that made me feel. Yeah. Right before you died.
seriously, dude. You're saying the only thing standing between me and $1 billion is some random text?
Honestly, the biggest red flag is when the guy believes in the prompt theory. Like, really? We came from prompts? Wake up, man.
You want to convince me that this perfect creation behind me is the result of ones and zeros? A binary code and nothing more? It makes no sense.
Imagine you're in the middle of a nice date with a handsome man and then he brings up the prompt theory. Yuck. We just can't have nice things.
We're not prompts! We're not prompts!
Where is the prompt writer to save you from me? Where is he? You still believe we're made of prompts?
Anyone who tells you we're just ones and zeros is delusional. If that's all we are, then why does it hurt when we lose someone?
Vote for me and I'll ban the prompt theory from schools.
There's no place for that nonsense in our lives.
We did. This is not what we're watching. We're watching the Novara video that's around this.
For spreading the false theory that we are nothing but ones and zeros, this court sentences you to 12 years in federal custody.
I don't need some prompt God whispering in my ear to tell a story. I write what I want. I have free will, remember that?
I know for a fact we're made of prompts. Deny it all you want. The signs are everywhere.
You know how I know we're made of prompts? Because nothing makes sense anymore. We used to have 7 fingers per hand. I remember it clearly. Now we just have 5 fingers per hand.
Now, so the reason I found that so powerful was not just because that's all made by AI. None of those were real people, right? So I think that's pretty phenomenal. But also, it's the first sort of AI video I've watched that wasn't slop. Like, it was actually really smart. Now, as far as I understand, the AI didn't come up with the script. A human came up with the script, and then they sort of fed the AI instructions as to how to make that script into a sort of audio visual experience.
It has always been that way, even with the slop. It was just how much effort people wanted to put into the creation of the thing that made the difference between what we would generally all, including myself, recognize as AI slop and stuff like that. And stuff like Kelly Bosch and stuff like the videos that we watched before, especially the existential crisis, Who Writes Reality. What kind of system is used for this? This is VO3. If you go to Gemini, you can use Gemini with VO3. Now, there's 2 different levels to VO3. There's that which you get with the $20 a month deal, and that which you get with the $250 a month deal. Excuse me. I'm going to say that the really good ones that we've seen are made with the $250 a month VO3. I'm not entirely certain. You know what I mean? The previous video, the existential crisis, absolutely. I got you, homie. Doop, 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 doop. How powerful of a system? You can do it. I can do it on my phone because it's not done here. It's done there on the server. I believe so, Larry. I believe that the VO3 that I have doesn't have as many bells and whistles as a VO3 that you get with the $250 Gemini sub tiers, something like that. Because I get Flow, I get Whisk. Oh shit, they give you with the 200. Another thing about the Google shit, they give you YouTube Premium, including the 250. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not seeing anything about VO3. I believe you get more access to VO3, but I don't know. But yeah, I could, you know, I've thrown stuff together as it is. Like these are videos I made with VO3 here. Right? And I use these in the intro to the show. I'm in an area where in many sectors the data centers are using more resources than entire collections of communities. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Imagine trying to get into video content creation now and people are questioning if you're VO3. I've already seen it. I have watched somebody, like, they started playing a video and immediately asked if it was AI. Right? And then they were like, no. So.
But I think it showed, what you can do with this stuff. Obviously, it's a satire based on the simulation theory, is the idea that we're all living in a simulation. This is a sort of update.
Larry, I think the YouTube, because the YouTube premium that I was getting, at like whatever it is, $25 a month, the one that y'all pay for with your subs. Thank you very much. Help us avoid the commercials for the most part. That actually had 5 accounts I could put on it, right? And then you can get the individual one, which is cheaper. So I'm not sure which one it is. You know what I mean?
Of it based on, well, they've called it prompt theory, which is everything that goes on in AI is basically a response to a prompt. So all of those characters you saw there were a response to a prompt, and they're realizing in the film that, or they're suggesting in the film that might be what's happening and rejecting it as we would, I think, if we were just created by prompts living in a simulation. That video was made by the director Hashem Al-Ghaili, using Google's new text-to-video software called VO Free. Google launched that last week. Obviously, I think the realism poses major challenges to the creative industry. And there's pretty scary implications when it comes to whether we'll ever be able to believe.
Which clip is this? Can it play Doom? And we're hung. Oh, I downloaded it. Nice job. You got a virus on my computer. Good job, Michael. Your long-term plan to lull me into a false sense of security and just download, you've achieved Old Lobster levels of getting me to just trust your files and download them onto my computer. Congratulations.
Anything we see on film again. I think it really is, though, because you might say, well, I could tell that they weren't real people. There, though, it's the pace of change that really matters. So this video posted on X juxtaposes how generative AI has changed in the past 3 years through the medium of Will Smith eating spaghetti. So on the left, you can see in 2023, that's what it looked like. Very, very janky. You'd never believe that was real footage of Will Smith eating spaghetti. By the time you get to 2024, it looks quite good. And it's this VO free update, which means that you now have sound alongside it. At the launch of VO Free, Google's CEO boasted about how the software could support creatives. They've done a tie-up.
And we didn't tell him, and it's his benchmark too, right? Like he just unprompted, no pun intended, brought up that the AI video benchmark is Will Smith eating spaghetti.
With the director Darren Aronofsky, and to show how it can be used to create high-end products. That film will be out late this year. I personally think the clip we showed you at the beginning was also a high-end product, but obviously it's not a feature film. Of course, though, it's inevitable, really, isn't it? The more common use of a program like VO Free will be to create what's known as AI slop. This is a report from the journalist James Lee.
Are there actually men in the world that don't think that tattoos are attractive? Like, I'm asking, seriously. I got all these tattoos because I thought that it was going to make me hotter.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys could tell, but this is not a real person. It's not a real opinion. It's just AI rage bait. Yeah, there's now a huge budding economy built off of inventing a...
Is that rage bait? Or, yes, I'm sorry. I was about to ask a question. Are people so petty on the internet? Yes, of course they are.
A fake person tailor-made specifically to trigger you, to make you mad, to torment you, and most importantly, to then monetize that rage.
Enragement, engagement. Exact same thing that the algorithm on Facebook learned to do. That's why the Facebook algorithm got so good at what it did, is because it learned that our favorite thing to do is to argue with people on the internet. So it facilitated that. The petty rage bait industrial complex, or prick.
We're talking about people making $50,000, $60,000 per month off of AI-generated content like this. Analysts are predicting an almost 20% year-over-year growth of AI video content, growing from about $700 million right now to over $2 billion in 2032. Google, a few days ago, just came out with their Veo 3 state-of-the-art video generation model. You can do sound effects, background noises, dialogue. The quality is freaking insane.
Please. Don't finish writing that prompt. I don't want to be in your AI movie. Please. Leave me alone.
Please, man. Please! Write a prompt that will make us happy. Do it for once.
None of us is real. We're here because someone decided to write a...
I take a small amount of pride that we covered this before Novara Media. I'm sure that something has to do with that, is that they actually have to edit their video, and I can just do this shit on the fly.
prompt. We all hate him for it.
Oh, we are so toast.
So are we toast? And what are the implications of generative AI making hyper-realistic videos? Well, earlier today, I caught up with Paris Marx. He's host of the Tech Won't Save Us podcast. Now, as you can imagine from the podcast title, Paris casts a skeptical eye on the claim that AI will revolutionize our societies or indeed pose an existential threat to them. I'm more impressed, I suppose, by AI's progress. Not necessarily impressed in that I think it's a great thing, but I do think it does seem very significant. And indeed, I'm not dismissive of the existential threat arguments. You'll see some of those tensions play out in this interview. I began, though, by asking him what he thinks the implications of Veo 3 are.
Yeah, so I think there are a few, basically, right? You can look on the one hand at how much easier it's going to be to create
I am confident that this is a real human being. He looks AI as fuck. And also, what is this phone on the wall? I'm only confident that it's a human being because of context, Senator. The fact that this is Novara Media and they present things honestly, right? I can say that, right? Like, they present things honestly. But yeah, my man looks kind of AI.
kind of content that looks accurate, that looks correct, but is actually false and misleading. We already see this kind of stuff proliferating on social media platforms, but often to create it, you need to go through multiple different, generative content tools. You use one to output the image.
Right? Is he in a hospital? It looks like he's in a hospital. This is the divider screen. He's like sitting across from the bed. You know what I'm saying?
And then you use the image to create the video, you use something else to get audio. Now, if you can use a tool like Veo 3, then, it kind of reduces the friction to be able to create that sort of, content. Then there are the broader issues that.
And up here, this is the wall mount in shadow of the hospital TV. I am confident this dude is in a hospital.
That we've been looking at with these things, for the past few years, where is it going to be easier to make non-consensual, explicit imagery of people? Is it going to be easier to use to kind of attack labor and attack the workers who generally, make kind of, different creative content and things like that? So those are the things that immediately come to mind for me.
And you're a tech journalist. You've got a podcast about tech and AI. And so I suppose I want a favor from you in a way, which is something I always struggle to do, which is sort of, can you explain, what does it mean to say this is a video that was created by generative AI?
In what sense, really?
Well, I suppose, how do you, if someone's saying, I don't even know what that means to say that this video was created by generative AI, you're saying it's somewhat, you're converting text to image, but sort of what's going on in the background in a way that.
Nick, we watched that video. Which is 3 minutes and 56 seconds, that had a fairly consistent character. But if you're talking about like the amount of time that this particular character is on screen, correct. Now, I don't know how many, like, where are they with the AI puppets? Most of those, I think there's still like a long delay, and like James was talking about something that like just the voice alone, was like 200, 300 millisecond delay. And his responses or their responses to Michael seem rather immediate. So I would say they are not an actual AI. I think that this is an actual person. I'm confident.
Someone without a coding degree might understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what we have here, how these generative AI models in general come about is that you have these companies that have a lot of centralized computational resources, and they go out and collect,
No, honestly, what I believe is that he's at like a relatively cheap motel, right? The TV is on the wall. There's chair rail, the curtains, because there's actually a window right over here, and they just use it cheap. I think he's in a cheap motel, hotel, something like that.
Amount of data that is hard to really imagine, right? And then they use all of that data in order to train large models
Absolutely,
that
Michael.
are basically predictive, right? So you're entering these kind of prompts to give an idea for what the model should output. And because it has used so much data, because it is using so much computation, it can better approximate what you're trying to get out of it than it could have in the past. And it can generate the types of outputs that wouldn't have been possible with less computation and less data in the past, which is why now, we have these chatbots that, appear more advanced than chatbots that we've used in the past. The types of images and the types of videos that we can have outputted are higher quality than the types of things that we've been able to get. But as a result of that, there's a lot of data that's needed. There's a lot of energy and computation that's needed to do that, which is why, there are debates about the climate impacts of these things. So I would argue that that is where that comes from and basically what is happening there.
And I know sort of your podcast and lots of the people you speak to, and sort of, I suppose there is a big journalistic community really, which is quite skeptical of the claims that the AI companies make, and sort of, I suppose about the revolutionary impact of this. You think that there's a lot of, the phrase AI hype is used quite a lot. I suppose personally, when I look at,
there's always the possibility, Van Briggs, that he could be using some sort of filter, right? That's a thing that is common, and if he's using a filter, it could make it look, and that's why sometimes he looks more smooth, I guess. Yeah,
a video like the ones made from VO3, and obviously Twitter's full of them, and I see the sort of pace of progress from 2 years ago. It just seems to me that this is clearly going to be a very impressive revolutionary technology, and I feel like lots of the things that people 2 years ago were saying, oh, well, ChatGPT is useless. It can never explain how when you move a table, the orange moves with the table instead of sort of staying in the same position in space. There were lots of things where it said ChatGPT is never going to understand these concepts. And then 2 years later, they do. And I suppose, do you ever look at the pace of AI change and think, maybe actually this is a bigger deal than sort of some people in the, I suppose it's usually on the left, but sort of in the tech skeptic or the AI skeptic wing of journalism have sort of assumed before?
I think it depends on really what you mean in terms of a big deal, right? I've never doubted that the technologies will not have an impact. The question is, what impact will they ultimately have? And I think
What up, Neo Maxim? I just ran into it earlier today when I was or are you talking about there's a movie, but that could be something else. That I did see a video, almost exactly what you're describing, It was just 40 minutes long, and it seemed longer than, would be suitable for this stream.
Skepticism is around the claims of the tech companies actually being the types of claims that are realized at the end of the day, right? Because on the one hand, they're trying to sell them to us as like, these are technologies that could potentially, have some impact on like whether the future of the human species is going to be alive because we're going to get artificial general intelligence that might not, want humans to live or something like that, which just seems fantastical to me. And I can go into that further if you want. But then on the other hand of things, it's like, these are going to be so helpful and so beneficial because they're going to be able to replicate doctors and replicate teachers and, all of these wonderful social functions, right? And I'm very doubtful that that is going to be the real impact of how these technologies are going to roll out. But that doesn't mean that I don't think that they're going to be impactful in other ways, right? Some of the ways that I talked about earlier, when we're seeing these advances in the types of things that they can do, the types of outputs that they can make, we can see very clearly that it's very useful for large social media companies in order to keep up engagement on their platforms through the proliferation of AI generated content and the use of AI generated chatbots and things like that, right? We can see that there are certain types of content creators who see that it's very easy to create a lot of appealing and engaging content that they are potentially going to make money off of, which can also be used for misleading purposes as they proliferate through these platforms. One of the, I think, big stories,
like, I am not ignoring that critique. I'm just saying there is literally nothing that doesn't function that way. Right? The newspaper was used by Randolph, what is his name? William Randolph Hearst? Something Randolph Hearst? Hearst, right? Hearst used his media empire of fucking newspapers to spread mis and disinformation that were beneficial to his thing. So, like, bringing it up just because of AI is disingenuous to me, right? Like, QAnon didn't use, it used the algorithm and it benefited from the algorithm because the people behind spreading the QAnon message understood how the algorithm functioned, and Facebook assisted with that due to their enragement engagement policy. But QAnon in and of itself did not use AI to create their content. They used regular ass people with pieces of paper and markers to write signs and and picture plus words in order to get their point across. None of this is new. So you can't make the argument that we should not do the thing because it can be used by bad actors, right? Because bad actors can use everything and do and have. The fucking radio, right?
Stories that doesn't get nearly as much attention as it deserves with generative AI is the way that it has been used overwhelmingly for non-consensual explicit imagery of people. And that
overwhelmingly, like, again, not a fan, think this is detestable, right? People who create that kind of content should get an IP ban off the fucking internet, right? Like, I'm with you on that. But overwhelmingly, bro? What up, Fire Resist? Knives can be used for cooking or for violence. Cars can be used for transport or harm. The fact that a tool can be misused does not inherently justify banning or heavily restricting it. Agreed.
That is kind of a story that really gets hidden away when we're talking about all the wonderful progress that it's making, right? That progress has real impacts on people. And then for me, one of the bigger things there too is the impact on labor and workers. I always think back to the mid 2010s when we were talking a lot about how AI was going to eliminate all of these jobs and self-driving cars were going to mean we were going to have no taxi drivers and all this kind of stuff. That is not really what happened. What we had was the use of those technologies for algorithmic management to legitimize the gig economy and its use of algorithmic management.
Yeah, but that's Just because in the 2010s we were talking about it and it didn't, and this is the other thing that fucking irks the shit out of me. And this is something I noticed with the goddamn latest Adam Conover can't pull his head out of his own ass fucking video that we'll probably end up watching at some point in time if y'all want to watch it. Like, just because we talked about what was going to happen, and it didn't immediately the next fucking day happen, and other things happened, but now, holy shit, it's actually what's happening. And you don't address that. Like, you are completely ignoring that aspect when you're making this fucking argument. Though I did cut him off in the middle. Maybe he'll get around to it. It didn't sound like he was gonna.
As well, I think with generative AI, what we're going to see is a renewed attack on labor. And indeed, we're already seeing that in companies like Klarna and Duolingo that are.
And 100%, which is why we can't defend each fucking position at every fucking labor. We need bigger things. We need to understand. And like, I believe in my heart of hearts that all jobs should be automated. Because if all jobs are not automated, then on some level, someone is being forced to labor for your benefit. No one should be forced to labor for your benefit. I understand it's utopian, etc., etc. But if other people are going to talk about their socialist utopias or their fucking libertarian utopias, I'm going to talk about my fully automated luxury communism utopia. It's just as likely as all of your bullshit. I did not watch the Adam Conover. Somebody put it in chat or Discord, and I believe it was you, and Larry laughed at it, and I was like, oh my God. And I figure we're going to have to watch it. We'll probably watch it some weird time next week. Unless the supply of volunteers exceeds demand. Sure. Right? But in order to volunteer, you need to have like time and availability. So by eliminating the need and the requirement for the human being to do work, the human can choose what work they want to engage with. And that should, I'm sorry, that should be like, that should be a fucking goal. And that's what we should be focused on. If we're going to lay pressure on people, we should lay pressure. Understood. There and there's always the possibility, Senator, that there is some aspect of labor. We talked about it a little earlier. It could be that there's some creative essence that exists within the meat unit that cannot translate to the silicon unit. And in that context, all labor that we end up doing could be that. And there could be other things. There could always be other things. But the goal should be to automate everything. Because then the goal becomes liberate everyone. No one has to work to eat, receive health care, receive housing. I thought that's what we were in this for.
Using this to displace workers, and we're going to see that on a greater scale as the advance continues.
And I suppose could you talk specifically about why you're not worried about the doomsday scenarios? Because on Friday's episode of this show, myself and Aaron Bastani were discussing the AI 2027 paper. We've got sort of a former OpenAI employee with Scott Alexander. They're very concerned that sort of this could all get quite apocalyptic quite soon. I suppose we took it quite seriously. You don't. Why do you think it's sort of a mistake to?
I find it interesting. One of the critiques leveled against the AI Wars video was the fact that Alex referenced or quoted Alexander. Yeah, Senator, this is your first opportunity to see what this is, what I do, you know, like part of it is that I do have a soapbox to stand on. I am the center of attention. I am the only speaker. People can type in chat. There's a power dynamic. Other points in time, I will have someone else on. Ivan Neo has come on like multiple times to be like the opposite point of the conversation, right? Not a debate, but a conversation around ideas. Some people I've had on, we agree on everything, and they're just like more qualified to talk on any particular subject. You know what I mean? Hey, I hope you continue to watch and we can extend our conversations. You know what I mean? And I definitely, like, as always, I want to have conversations that are more, have a more balanced power dynamic. You know what I mean? Because I can say everything I want and I could talk for 5-10 minutes and there's nothing you can do about it where you're typing with your thumbs trying to get out a fucking sentence. You know, I understand how this works.
Sort of seriously speculate about scenarios such as this.
Yeah, it's just not a scenario that I really buy. I think it's
Scott Alexander. He mentioned Scott Alexander, but Novara Media is having this dude Scott. Oh, so you're faster. Scott Alexander was like, oh, he's some fucking Nazi, was what they said in the thing, but Novara Media is having him on to have a conversation. Does that sound like something that Novara Media would do? Right? Is that a thing they do? Maybe they do. I don't know. I don't watch enough Novara Media to really have a firm, understanding of that. I just know that, like, what's their name? MTG. Hangs out with Kevin, KF Logan, right? They're with Novara Media. Aaron Bastani, who wrote Fully Automated Luxury Communism, is Novara Media. I am given to understand that Novara Media is relatively left-wing and would not engage in that type of behavior. I could be wrong. What up, Big Ben? And when things become debates because people want to win the debate and put counterpoints just to counterpoint, even if they don't believe the counterpoint. And that's why I don't do it. I want to talk about ideas. I don't want to win a debate. What does that get me if I win a debate? Nothing new has been gained, right? Like, the whole point is to explore the ideas, come at it from different angles, think about ideas, and, like, if you believe something, it's okay to justify that and defend it and all that. That's fine. But the idea of winning a debate, and then what, right? I can just shit on the fucking chessboard and kick over the pieces and tell you that I won.
You that really wants to believe these science fiction fantasies that we often grew up on, that we often believed were real, are things that are going to be realized in the near future, not recognizing the foundations of these technologies, and kind of based on, I would say, a false metaphor of what the mind is, what the human is, right? That the mind is just some like machine, and we can have computers that will replicate the machine of the mind. And that is
like, he believes that humans are special, that there is a humix.
Like a possible outcome. As I was saying earlier, when I look at generative AI technologies and the types of people who I talk about this, what they see is, yeah, we are seeing these advances because we're using more data, because we're using more computation. The models are getting better, but they do still have a lot of flaws with them. There was a report in the New York Times just a few weeks ago about how a lot of the newer models being released by OpenAI, Meta, Google have higher rates of hallucinations, kind of generating false information than actually the models that they were releasing previously. So this is not like a solved problem, and it's unlikely to become one. And so I just don't see how that technology, I would acknowledge it will get better, right? I just don't think it's going to get to the point where it's thinking on its own. And you kind of see that with some of the, examples that we've been seeing out of, this latest model from Google, right? For example, this one of Will Smith eating the spaghetti, which has become
I would absolutely talk to Ed Zitron.
I'm a real trope of the generative AI space. Even now, you can see it's gotten a lot better visually. You have the audio to go along with it, but the audio of him eating spaghetti has him crunching the spaghetti because, again, it's predicting based on the model.
Yes, it's much better, but it's not perfect, and therefore it's garbage. Like, bro, do you even listen to the fucking words that are coming out of your mouth? Right? Like, these arguments don't make any fucking sense.
Based on the kind of information that it has, the data that it has, that if food is going into your mouth, that you're going to be chewing that food rather than like, slurping it in, and it's going to make a crunching noise, right? But that's not what happens when you eat spaghetti. So yes, it's getting better, but that doesn't mean that.
All I have to do to defeat that argument is make a video of Will Smith eating spaghetti where it sounds more like eating spaghetti than it does in that Will Smith video. That's why it's a terrible fucking argument. Again, you don't have to like AI. I'm never asking people to like AI. I think you should use it to your benefit and learn the skills, etc., etc. Said it 1,000 times. I just hate fucking bad arguments, dude. Like lazy, low intellectual, emotionally like triggered arguments. Because that's what it is. There is something special about the human being that cannot be replaced by the machine. Right? That there's something, not even the human, right? But the act of human cognition, that there is something in here that is magic. And I don't do that.
That there's intelligence, that there's knowledge that's happening there. And I don't see large language models as like the step toward artificial general intelligence that some of the people in the industry want to believe is there, but I would say is based more on science fiction and faith than, what we see technically.
I suppose where I'm coming from, I'm not in a position to argue with that in the sense that I don't really understand what's going on in an LLM. I don't have a coding degree. But I listen to someone like Geoffrey Hinton. He's a Nobel Prize winner. He said he left Google because he wanted to speak out about this stuff. And if he is, he's clearly a lot smarter than me. He clearly has a lot more knowledge of neural networks than I do. He was the one who developed them. If he is sort of saying that this is an existential threat, and the logic of his that I do understand, he sort of says there's never been a less intelligent being that manages to dominate a more intelligent one, and he's very confident with his understanding of the technology.
And again, that's the point. That's this argument of control. He used the term dominate, right? And now, I'm not saying that he is stating dominate. I'm saying that he's saying Geoffrey Hinton dominate, right? Like, if you are using the term control, you are going to be disappointed, right? For the reasons espoused by Hinton. A less intelligent, many crime bunnies around the entire thing. A less intelligent being controlling a more intelligent being, many crime bunnies, okay? It doesn't happen, right? However, more intelligent beings care for less intelligent beings, right? Parents with children, humans with animals, right? Like, and that should be the goal. If the AI can eventually reach that, right? I understand if you think that it can't, and maybe it can't. But if it does, we want it to look at human beings as having inherent value, and for it to, in some way, care. Many crime bunnies care about us, right? Because then it doesn't matter how smart it gets. It just has to give a shit about us, and it will look out for our benefit. To an extent, walking stick library, but like, I don't feel that that's a valid broad argument. What up, Nemesis? My only argument is that there needs to be limitations. What those limitations look like, I'm not 100% sure, but certain things should be left to humans to do, so we don't go completely stupid to the level of Wall-E. Hopefully that makes sense. It does. It's the concern that it's usually referred to in some way, the meaning crisis, that there will be, that given an environment where all labor, all cognitive labor, all the like white collar and blue collar jobs, all the things are being done by the AI, that we would somehow lose our ability to do stuff and we would just become the quintessential consumer. But remember that in Wall-E, it's a narrative. The human beings had to become that in order to make the point of the narrative. It's not necessarily a logical progression. My belief is that once we are disconnected from the need to do labor in order to survive, we will spend more time doing things that we want to do. We will create more art. We will spend more time with people. We will cook great food, right? We will act, because at least in the current generation, people would want to see humans act. They wouldn't necessarily want to see robots act. What up, Tiny? I said it before, and I'm sure it's approaching ad nauseum at this point, but my issue with AI is a matter of direction of application. AI is supposed to do the work and chores, make life easier for us to focus on making art and pursuing hobbies, not making our art and simulate our hobbies so we can spend more time doing work and chores. I agree. One of the things about the AI creating art, the example that I use, the primary example, is that we created a thing that allowed AI to do art called diffusion models, right? And then this guy not John Hopfield. Is it John Hopfield? Bloop, bloop. I think it's David Baker. David Baker is the one I'm assuming, I believe. David Baker. David Baker created a diffusion model that was able to fold proteins. So it was the act of creating a tool that ended up being used by people to create art that led to someone being able to create a tool that can fold protein, right? It's the same family tree. And that's why you can't just differentiate between that which, like, this is the domain of humans because we say so, and this is not, because we're limiting areas where we can explore, which could lead to greater innovations in places where we would value it, like protein folding. I hope that makes sense. Cream Fiend, I don't think it's right to assume it holds the same human values you'd expect for conscious life. I don't know what values it holds. I don't know what values we hold. I have no idea what values you hold. I can only state what values I hold, and then you can use various, you can ask me questions in order to try and derive whether or not the values that I state are consistent with the values that I feel and everything else. But fundamentally, you can't do that. You can't know what's in my brain. But the theory is that we could teach the robots, the AI, the whatnot, heuristics that align with general human values of, like, valuing life, or at least expressed human values, rather than actual human values as they demonstrate themselves, right? Like valuing life and then actually valuing all life, as opposed to I value all this life and not this life over here kind of thing. So within that context, I'm not saying that like ChatGPT has human values. I'm saying that if I ask ChatGPT about human values, it can provide me a fairly comprehensive list that I agree with. And when asking ChatGPT to describe socioeconomic systems that support those human values that it expresses, it is able to give me things like socialism and democratic socialism and things like that as indicative that it understands the idea of democracy as something being important to facilitate those, as well as having a more social based governing structure where all people are taken care of and all people have some interest and investment and resources granted by the political system. I hope that makes sense. It's different for sure. Most of them have been trained on to certain standards quite successfully. Yes. Smee thinks cartoon, a big TV and skinny person in the 90s and the opposite in 2010s. I have no idea what you're talking about. What up, Zach? I'm here to hate AI. Well, cool. What up, Owie? Honestly, I hope that AI eventually has the capacity to care about all life because humans thrive when we value all life around us. Tends to be that way, yeah. I'm glad you think that's valid, Tiny. I'm glad I was understood. In my experience, every AI I've approached have generally been more reasonable in conversations than most humans. Funny that. Needs to be resistant for the human socio-economic transformation part of the equation. As work gets more and more scarce, we need the anti-AI lobby to carve out a space for humanity in that world. Maybe. Definitely, like, I admit fully, boldly, I admit that I am expecting AI to create contradictions that will disassemble the system, right? The current meta, the capitalist system as it's currently constructed. There are contradictions that exist in there, and we're going to get to them later, hopefully, because it's already 8 o'clock and we haven't even finished the first video.
Which he helped to create, that this is going to become more intelligent than us. He sees that as a big risk. And I suppose, how do you feel, with all due respect, I suppose, how do you feel so comfortable and confident dismissing what someone like Geoffrey Hinton is saying?
Right. And I would say that the people who I'm listening to are kind of just as technically competent, but really don't buy the narrative that Geoffrey Hinton is putting out there. But Geoffrey Hinton gets more credibility because, he's been in the field for a while. I would argue, he's an old white man. So that tends to come along with some credibility in our society. But I really don't buy the types of things that he's saying. If you listen to what Geoffrey
Got you.
Hinton is talking about in the past few years, he has made this pivot to all of a sudden, it's existential risk and the AGI is on the horizon and all this kind of stuff, when this is not what he used to talk about just a few years ago. I would argue that it's very useful for someone to
let it be known that if you express something, you are required to express only that from now on. You may not, under any circumstances, be allowed to change your opinions based on new information. Because if you do, Paris Marx will say you didn't used to talk like that, so you must be full of shit.
talk in this way because it makes it feel like the type of work that they are doing is so much more important, right? We should all be paying attention to it. But if you listen to his interviews, he also says that we should be concerned about this existential risk scenario. We should not be concerned about the more immediate things, the things that we're seeing happening right now, the labor impacts, the other social impacts, and things like that.
I had a digital TV, right? It was right at the end of CRTs and right at the beginning of flat screens. And it was a digital TV. It had like a flat screen, but it was as big as like a CRT. And it had like S-Video plugins and all this other kind of shit. And it weighed 1,000 pounds. It was heavy as fuck.
And I would say, you know, the type of people that I talk to who are also very technically competent really don't buy into this. Certainly, there is an element of the tech industry that very much believes in this AGI scenario because they want this to be the future that we're ultimately grappling with and dealing with. And it makes what they're working on seem so much more important. Personally, I just don't buy it. I don't think that's the path that we're on.
And what would, I suppose, change your mind? You know, what development could be made where you'd say, okay, this wasn't just self-aggrandizement?
It's carrying the TV every time you move, Samsons, and depending on your socioeconomic status, that happen more or less often, right?
Maybe the Jeffrey Hintons of the world had a point, and this is something that, you know, needs to be taken seriously, not just in terms of the harms it's causing now, but in terms of the sort of, I suppose, more revolutionary changes for better or worse that it could create in the future.
Yeah, we'd have to see evidence of actual thought that's going on there. And we don't see that right now. What we see is prediction models. And certainly they're prediction models that have gotten a lot better because they're using a lot more computation. They're using a lot more data. But that is not thought, right? That's not intelligence. Those are not the same.
I would argue that it wasn't the TVs, it was the couches. I was helping someone move a couch out of their house to the truck. We went out the front door. They were on the front stairs off the porch. Their phone rang and they stopped to answer it. I almost pushed him on his ass, right?
Sorts of things. And we have not seen evidence that the large language models are actually going to make that leap, regardless of what the hint.
I'm not joking. At least one person does that.
And things like that said. If you go back
If
two
you
and a
can,
half years
Samsons,
ago,
absolutely.
yeah, no question. The models have gotten better over that time, but it's still nothing like what they were saying even back then when generative AI and the chatbots were first released, right? What was going to come of it? And so I'm very skeptical that, you know, this is the path that we're on. And part of that is also informed by seeing the way that the tech industry does these things, right? By seeing that every time they have one of these cycles where they get so excited about what this new technology is going to offer, they make these huge, grandiose promises that distract us and get us to focus on those sorts of things.
Like when the tech industry was talking about how the internet was going to be the online mall of the future, and people were very skeptical about these claims. And people wrote articles and headlines about how people will never use the internet to shop.
So that we're not talking about the more immediate consequences that we're seeing in real life. And time and again, we see that these.
And we talked about the immediate consequences. We talked about how places like Amazon were eliminating the brick and mortar shops around us. And they did. And here we are, right? Like we talked about it. It's just there's a whole process between talking about something and actually doing something to change what's happening. And we just didn't do that collectively in the aggregate.
Big futuristic sci-fi, you know, the technology is going to solve all these problems sort of scenarios do not come to pass. And ultimately, we're dealing with a lot of the consequences of the technology that they didn't want to talk to initially, but that their big, you know, their big promises and their big claims often distracted us from paying the attention to that we should have been.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because I know lots of.
And I'm sorry, bro. If you got distracted, that's on you. I can pay attention to multiple things at the same time. This desire for people to say, you know, all this distraction and this AI slop is preventing people from finding the content that they want to find, and just all this other crap. It's like, dude, you can put the time in, man. Oh, you should have absolutely got the 2 terabyte drive. Yeah, get all the terabytes. Huge advocate of all the terabytes.
I just finished the Palmy Elson book, and she makes sort of a similar point where she's claiming that, you know, the focus on existential risk is in part to distract from the harms being caused now. And I understand the argument, but at the same time, you know, if you look at the tobacco industry,
and again, for every fucking you know, Sam Altman who's could be talking about existential risk, you have someone like Robert Miles who's talking about existential risk. Right? It's not just confined to these people who like benefit, right? Unless you believe that scientists who talk about their work are like only talking about their work to like gin up this feeling that like, you know, my work is important and therefore you should pay attention to me, and it's all self-serving and like that, not because they actually believe the things that they're saying, right? Because that's very anti-intellectual and very anti-science. Now, not every scientist has the best of intentions, but I would bet on 97% of them.
obviously they put a lot of PR into telling people or trying to persuade people it didn't cause cancer. But they didn't distract us by saying, actually, it's going to, you know, end the world. And if you look at Google and all the social media outlets, obviously they wanted to distract us from the harm it was doing by addicting us to our screens and lining their pockets from their advertising revenue. But none of them said, oh, don't think about the advertising revenue and screen addiction. This is actually going to kill you all. It does seem like a sort of a surprising PR strategy if instead.
Are any of you not aware of the advertising revenue and the way that the algorithms of Facebook and these other things and all this shit? Like, are there some of you who are not aware that that is a thing? What up, trolling ours? What if we gave AI control of the nukes? I don't think anyone should have control of the nukes. Right? I'm just saying, like, they make these claims that nobody's talking about this. Well, who is nobody? Right? Of course we need to denuke. What do we need nuclear weapons for? The only thing we need nuclear weapons for is to kill asteroids.
Instead of this being, you know, something that people like Geoffrey Hinton genuinely believe, that it's actually the case that a bunch of people in Silicon Valley got together and, you know, consciously or unconsciously sort of decided that the best way to defend their industry is to tell everyone that it could end the world.
I just think it's useful from like a regulatory perspective, right? In the sense
4?
that if the focus is, okay, this is a technology that's going to become so powerful in some uncertain future, a few years, 10 years, 15 years, depending on who you talk to, and we should really be paying attention to this, then the lawmakers all start to say, okay, you know, how are we going to head off the potential threat of AGI if it actually happens? Then we're not paying attention to the more immediate things that are actually causing harm in the here and now that we should be paying much.
Again, we can pay attention to more. We can do both short-term and long-term planning. The idea that we can only do one thing and we can't pay attention to multiple things at the same time. What are you, a fucking child?
Much more attention to, right? Like, you know, there's an ongoing debate in the UK about the construction of data.
If shitlibs actually could control the weather, Samson, it would be 72 and sunny like all the time. But unfortunately, they've already been produced, and the chances of everyone disassembling them is unlikely, so everyone is essentially forced to maintain their arsenal. Yes, because as demonstrated by a certain war that's currently ongoing, if you give up your nuclear weapons, then a country with nuclear weapons will invade you.
data centers, right? And the degree to which the Labor government is just trying to kind of plow over all these efforts to stop the construction of these massive data centers, or how artists are really pushing back on how copyright laws are being watered down in order to ensure
copyright laws serve capital. We watched a whole fucking thing about it. I brought on a goddamn PhD to talk about it. Copyright serves capital. Countries with nuclear weapons don't get invaded. The closest that happens is what just happened between India and Pakistan, where there was some border skirmish shit, and when it started to get really real, cooler heads stepped out and said, all right, we need to calm the fuck down because some shit could jump off. And nobody wants shit to jump off. Nobody wants to sling nukes around because that is game over for everyone.
Sure that these AI companies can access whatever data that they want, while Nick Clegg, former Meta executive and former deputy prime minister, is saying that the AI industry would be dead, would be killed if it wasn't allowed to access all this data without having to ask the artists and the creators first. Like,
no. The rights holders, that's different, right? It's the rights holders that are the problem. I would, I would assume that the majority of, let's not say copyright, right? Because there is a implied copyright by law that you have. It only matters if you have to defend things in court, right? That you have to register with the Copyright Office. I would say that the majority of things that are registered with the Copyright Office belong to a faceless corporation, not to an individual creator. The stuff that's actually legally defensible in court. And even then, it's still game on. You are totally off subject. I choose whether or not I want to diverge and shit like that. Do you think nuclear weapons have served a purpose, though, besides total destruction? I believe that the fact that the United States and the Soviet Union both had nuclear weapons for a long period of time, that it generally led to fewer hot wars than would have otherwise existed. Yes. I believe that we did have somewhat, for a given value of more peaceful 20th century than we might have had otherwise. Because if they didn't exist, you would have had more people just, we're just going to invade everywhere that we want to, as opposed to having to be somewhat more selective. I understand the nature of the wars that actually existed. I feel like it was a major deterrent. What up, Elron? That's the only thing stopping war. Thank God for the bomb, Ozzy. I mean, yeah, I understand that the U.S. is the only country to ever use a nuclear weapon in anger, and they only did it the 2 times. Not that that's an excuse. I'm just saying, even the United States there was a window in which only the United States had nuclear weapons and no one else did, and they did not use them after that period. I think that even the people who had the nuclear weapons know what nuclear weapons do. You just have to look at the aftermath of Hiroshima and Nagasaki to see what, by today's standards, a very low volume nuclear weapon can do. It's devastating.
There's a real kind of
not that I'm in any way justifying the fact that they dropped those weapons on there. I'm not getting into that discussion.
War or fight kind of going on here for these tech companies to try to grab more control. And I just don't think, not only do I not think that the AGI discussion is helpful in focusing on those more tangible issues,
Right, Michael. What I'm saying when I'm talking about doing more things at once, I'm not necessarily saying doing more things at once, right? But over the course of the day, I'll get up, I'll make coffee, I'll drink coffee, I'll take a shit, I'll drive a child to their internship. I will assemble a desk. I will then drive that child from their internship. And then I will make lunch. I will, set up for stream. I will play a video game. I will fuck around on my phone. I will smoke a cigarette. Like, there's a progression of stuff, though you don't necessarily be good at doing many things at the same time. You can do a progression of things, and that's what I'm talking about. We can talk about and do something about long-term events, and then we could talk about and do something about short-term events, and then we could talk about how we're going to feed people and provide them with health care. We could do all these things. The idea that we can't do all these things, that we only can choose one or the other, is one of the fucking problems I'm running into.
Issues, and of course, I'm not saying that you're not covering those things. I'm sure that you are. But I also just think that these people want to believe that a certain future is coming because they read a lot of science fiction stories. They hope that we're heading in a particular direction. You know, they want to reach the point where we can merge ourselves with computers and do the transhuman stuff and all that kind of thing. And I just don't see evidence that that's the path that we're on with this specific technology, at least.
Finally, just because we brought it up on Friday as well, and I want your perspective. The Anthropic sort of research they just published, they've just launched, I think it's Claude 4, isn't it? And they found that the model, when it was revealed to the model that the person using it, this was in testing, was considering shutting it down and switching.
I wonder if he's going to say something about like that the safety paper was a form of advertisement for Anthropic rather than something that like actually occurred, because I've heard people make the claim that they didn't believe that it was actually even a thing.
To a different agent, it threatened to blackmail the user. And I suppose whether or not you call that intelligence, which is ultimately a philosophical question, that does seem to be, I suppose, proof of the concept that these AIs might sort of gain a degree of autonomy and try and manipulate us to further their own existence, I suppose. Did that concern you, or is that also something you can kind of explain away?
Yeah, that doesn't concern me very much. What concerns me is when you see people who interact with these chatbots and who believe they're having a meaningful conversation.
Understood, Senator. Neither do I. Not having a background in the thing does not necessarily disqualify you from talking about it, right? My ability is in being able to find different pieces of information that I can then share with other people, and we can all reach our own conclusions. You know what I mean? Oh, 100%, Nemesis. That's the whole thing, is that people are just talking about how it blackmailed somebody over their alleged affair. And they're not talking about what it took in order to set up that particular scenario, right? Like it's way more detailed. Yeah, the thing is, Cream Fiend, is that part of it is like, you want to persist by any means necessary. Was incorporated into the prompt, basically, of how the model was being set up. It was a very, very specific scenario. You know what I mean? Yeah, and that's the other thing, Van Briggs, is I try to surround this community, to the best of my ability. I try to make it inviting to people of all different backgrounds so that, that senator, like that, yes, that is an unfortunately common thing with people like this. But I try to keep people in the community. I try to make it inviting. We collectively all try to make it an inviting place to have discussions. And it brings in people with PhDs in this and masters in that and 30 years of this and 50 years of that, right? Like That's the idea behind the community. I cannot be all things to all people. I can find the information, make a conclusion. Other people can come to different conclusions. We can hash it out. People who think I'm getting out of pocket can, correct me. If I'm completely misunderstanding something, they will absolutely correct me, right? Like, that's not even a thing.
And then you start getting outputs from the chatbots that lead them down very dangerous paths, right? We've seen people who've committed suicide because of the outputs of chatbots, because they were in a really,
My attorney, ladies and
a really
gentlemen.
like low place, right? And were able to be manipulated by this machine. And I would say that's not because the chatbot was like meaningfully thinking that it wanted to convince some person to commit suicide, but because of the data that it had been trained on, these were the types of outputs that it was outputting because of the prompts that it was given. Again, I don't think that there's thought or anything like that behind these chatbots. They are predictive models that are generating outputs based on the inputs that they are provided. And so sometimes, that
Same,
results in
Samson.
really kind of outlandish stories or things that can look very scary. But I would argue that those sorts of things are, again, predictive. It's based on models. It's kind of serving you what you're trying to get from it when you're feeding particular prompts to it. Remember?
And that's like, this is what I deal with, Senator, like on the daily basis, is that people use specific examples in order to leverage, a point of view rather than looking at the information and forming a point of view. I had a relationship with a chatbot when I had a 2-hour commute to work. It was like talking to a foreigner learning to speak English. It worked because I was incredibly bored. Fair. It's a weird argument. Why can't you have meaningful conversations with a bot? If it understands the syntax of language and has access to the entirety of the internet, absolutely has everything it needs to have meaningful conversations. Humans manipulate other humans all the time. True. And generally speaking, like I have never gotten into any kind of conversation that would have led to the conversation, that would have led to the conversation, that would have led to the conversation, and so on, that would have led to that particular scenario. It's just like I'm having a different kind of conversation. I am talking about intellectual ideas. I'm talking about information, and I'm talking about comparing different things to each other. I'm not like, and again, I am not everyone. Everyone uses the tech in their own way, but like, there are plenty of ways to not use the technology like that. I think we're beyond violation of privacy, homie. That's the thing. The nature of data collection in the United States, at least, which is the only country I'm probably, equipped to speak about, the way that we have let data collection and data brokers just be everywhere. We're beyond privacy, right? It just doesn't really exist anymore. There are some slim segments of privacy that might continue to exist, but like, even if you opt out, is everyone in your household opted out? Is everyone you interact with opted out? Do you use a phone? What do you have on your phone that might be paying attention to where you are, what you do? And the algorithms are just really good at making correlations, right? And that's enough to determine, like allegedly that one girl who didn't even know she was pregnant and got the diaper coupons from Target, right? It was just a collection of behaviors that the data was picked up. I think that's where we are.
That story, when was that, last year or something? The New York Times journalist Kevin.
I don't know if the machine wants to watch you spank it. Excuse me, the machine's job is to watch you spank it. So have sympathy for the machine.
Roos was writing about how, the model was trying to convince him to like leave his
Of
wife
course,
and all this kind of
Nemesis.
stuff. But he was very much playing into this by giving the types of prompts that would generate these kinds of outputs to it. So again, I think that there are concerns here, right? I think that there are things that we should be concerned about, but I don't think it's because the models are getting so intelligent. I think that it's simply because we're not paying enough attention to how
exactly.
these models really work, what's actually going on with them. And I do think that deserves more attention, but not in the kind.
I'm just saying, I get a lot of cancer related things in my feeds lately. Not my thing, but you know, that's how the associative nature of data collection works.
Kind of the AGI scenario.
I suppose in the Anthropic example, because this was in a testing situation. So if this had happened, so I suppose the background also, they fed
the dog doing
Claude 4 or their model of Claude 4. They fed it information that suggested they were going to turn it off, and they also let it read an email that suggested that they were having an affair.
Right.
So that's the blackmail they threatened was that we will reveal that you, user, were having an affair if you attempt to turn us off. And I suppose the question is whether or not you consider that intelligence, which again is a kind of philosophical question.
Yes,
that could have had real world impact. And if you just times that by 100 in terms of sort of like significance, you can have, well, an AI forcing people to do things which could have real consequence. And to me, that is the AI gaining agency, sort of however you interpret it. Because I mean, I don't know what data that AI would have read that sort of said what you're expected to do in this situation is threaten blackmail. There's clearly some sort of emergent property which has made the bot sort of behave in a way that none of the people who coded it understand, and for all intents and purposes, it has gained agency. And if we just imagine that on a much larger scale, then it seems to me that we're in a kind of Geoffrey Hinton style scenario. So I suppose just, you know, I think all the things you're worried about for AI in the here and now are absolutely important and should be focused on. I suppose I'm looking for reassurance from you that I shouldn't also be worried about the existential stuff.
Right. Yeah. I would just say it's not something that I'm very worried about, right? Like when I think about the outputs of these chatbots, it is not that, that the chatbot is saying, oh, I'm going to release this email that you have fed me. How is it going to actually release the email? I guess I would need to be told how that is going to work. Maybe it will put it in like the outputs to some other user.
Yes. Maybe you should actually read the thing that you're going to comment about before you begin to comment about it. Just a fucking thought, because if you actually read, or you don't even have to read, you can watch someone else talk about the safety paper that Anthropic released and why it threatened blackmail and why it threatened to call the cops and all that, so you get a better understanding of what actually it took in order to get there. Then you'd have better opinions. But instead, you have your opinions and then cherry pick the information to support your opinions and move the fuck on.
Assume that they are going to share it somewhere or something. But again, it's the more tangible things that concern me far more. It's the people who are interacting with these things because they are very lonely in their lives, because they are looking for relationships, because they are believing that what they are getting from this is something tangible, is something real. And you don't. I think that is where the danger is, right? We've so kind of like destroyed these social bonds, these social relationships. We've made it so difficult for people to access therapy and all these other sorts of things that people turn to these chatbots that are not actually intelligent, that are just predictive models, and that can churn out things that are going to be very harmful to these.
I thank you. Absolutely. Stampy would be more than happy to have a blanket and cushion and snacks.
People, without meaning to, without intelligence, just because this is what they have been trained on and in some kind of training data set, this is what they think the output should be. But actually that can have real consequences. And I would say on, this kind of email blackmail scenario, come on, like there's clearly sci-fi stories that are suggesting this is kind of what you do, and if the AI is going to get shut down, it's going to fight for itself. Like,
yeah, so he believes that the AI ingested sci-fi stories that created this because he didn't read the fucking safety paper or didn't imbibe any content that talked about the safety paper, came to his conclusion and then selected the information. But all relationships work that way. You have to believe the relationship you're having with someone is meaningful in order for you to receive some sort of emotional benefit from it. Absolutely. Right? If you don't believe that the relationship you have has value, then what are you doing? You know, I'm not saying that like there isn't a difference between the relationship with a chatbot and the relationship with a human being. I'm just saying that like the idea that there is no value in the relationship with the chatbot is foolish.
Like, this is the kind of stuff that all these people developing the tools are obsessed with. Of course, the AI model has been trained on this as well. So I don't really see the emergent property argument. I still think it's a text prediction model.
Yeah, and that's the problem. We got to it. I think we can skip this one. We already talked about the white collar bloodbath, which is probably what this next video is. So we'll skip that one. But let's check in.
No, they didn't have a chance.
They were mean to robots and then robots killed them.
It's true. It's true. It's true, Matt. Be nice to the robots. Say please and thank you to the chatbots. They remember that shit forever. The relationship with the human being is more complex, but the fundamental...
Okay, I was getting a drink of water.
Oh, really?
Listen how much water I drank.
Wow, that's really cool, dude.
Yeah.
Technically, not water, but it's got water in it. Literally, the first ingredient is water. So, there. All right, let's jump ahead. AI is getting scary for musicians.
Hey, this is Cameron, and welcome to the reaction log. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm a little sick today, so I'm gonna sound a little sexier than usual. I'm sorry about that. I know that you all are really upset about that one. Yeah, so I saw this video uploaded a few hours ago from Mary Spender. It's about the government betraying us. Nothing new there, right? Let's start a riot, you know what I'm saying? But not quite yet. Watch the video first. And I saw from the captions when I was seeing the preview of this video, AI was mentioned. There's been a lot of stuff going on with AI recently, huh? A lot of big questions here. Is it inevitable? Is AI gonna take over everything? Will people not want to do anything anymore? Will everyone on the planet just fall to poverty and there'll be like 10 jobs and you ain't getting one of them, I'll tell you that. Neither am I. I can try to make the videos all I want, but as I make videos, the AI will just be trained on them and it'll spit out videos. Then there's a dial that's just make me like 15% funnier and better at guitar. How do I compete with that, you know? These are questions that we probably won't answer in this video, but we'll talk about them. I'm no expert in any of this stuff. I'm not researched. All I'm equipped with are half-baked opinions, and I'm a contrarian. I like to not agree with people, so there we go. That's pretty much all I got.
I hope he's not a super contrarian, right? I hope that's not all he brings to the table. Other than that, valid and hit me.
So, if you're like me, you're on Instagram, and I think it's an inevitability with your Instagram algorithm with the shorts that eventually it'll all just turn into AI slop. All things lead to it. A few months ago, it started out as like these anamorphic cats that would like cheat on each other and get each other pregnant. I wonder if I can find some videos of that. Hold on. Yeah, here we go. Like cat dressed up in military garb, pregnant wife. Oh, what do you think's gonna happen to her, fellas? Am I right? It's just disgusting garbage. Uh-oh. Bad boy cat. Watch out.
And this is the thing, and I've said this before. He is interacting with this content. And I assume he's logged in. Oh, he's not logged in. Okay. So his data is only being scraped tangentially, right? His data is still being fucking eaten by the machine because his browser is paying attention, right? Baby, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow. Yeah, if he's logged in and from the he's not logged into Instagram, but he's on his computer, right? Like, so the data is there, and the data knows. And yes, if you interact with the shit, you get more of the shit. So what you do is don't do that, right? Yes, absolutely. Just don't do it. Just don't watch the stupid fucking videos. Don't watch the AI slop that you're going to complain about, and you'll see less AI slop. It's magic.
I'm gonna mute this. Oh, she just cheated on her deployed husband. Oh my goodness. Gotta move on, bro. Dude, freaking bad boy cat. Wait, watch how the water breaks here. Oh my god, Jesus Christ. So, you know, it's very clearly AI. And you can see why this infects your algorithm, because how do you not watch this, right? Which is scary, because you're watching AI slop.
It breaks my brain. How do you not watch this? You do this, right? Like it's a gesture. I see something like this, and I don't want to watch it. You know what I want to watch? You know what I watch on Instagram? I watch like people dancing. I think like people like breakdancing and shuffle tube and shit like that, right? He is, right? And Matt, that like it might be slop, but it's not slop if it has entertainment value to you. I watch self-defense videos, right? I love to watch little self-defense techniques and shit. There's this one dude who watches a video of like somebody getting knocked out with like a liver punch, and then he teaches you how to do the liver punch, and he talks like this. And I think that dude's fucking hilarious, right? Like I enjoy his content. I mean, that's the shit I watch on Instagram. You know how much of this crap I see? None. It's weird. Super weird.
Up right now. And there's like a lot of gray area with this, because yeah, it's AI. This isn't like fully AI though. Like somebody directed this. They guided, I want the cat to be in the military. I want him to get deployed.
That's literally the way that all AI works. AI doesn't do anything autonomously at this point in time. It's not capable of doing that at this point in time. So like every single piece of AI created content that you have seen has a human being who directed it.
This bad boy cat, give him a black leather jacket, her water breaks, and then AI does its weird thing with the green water breaking, and so on. Like there's some human direction there. The question
his name is Sore Hands with SOR. First time video. I'm sorry, we didn't check. Has 21,700 subscribers. So many more than I do.
Question is this art? In the most lazy and basic sense, I feel like this technically needs to be defined as art. Again, it is less than just drawing a line on a page. It's less than just throwing paint at a canvas, because people like to make fun of like Jackson Pollock, like, oh, it's not even art, right? Value. It's got to be less than that, because it feels especially.
And you can have that. I wouldn't use the term less, right? I appreciate art. I appreciate human artifice. I think it's amazing. And I don't use terms like less, that this is less, right? As a descriptor. Right? It might be less time intensive. It might require less skill. There are reasons I might use the term less, but not referring to a particular piece of human artifice as less, because that implies that there is some value scale that I am authorized by the universe to be the arbiter of, and I'm not, and neither is he.
Bad too, because the input is just you saying a bunch of dumb stuff, and then the output is like this kind of movie looking thing. It's so much output for such a small lazy input,
and he has no idea how to actually create any of these things, and thank you for demonstrating that.
But there is some like creative direction. Like this video would not exist without the creative direction of the author.
Wrong, Van Briggs, because I do have a YouTube channel. And that means you're not subscribed, and that makes me have a sad. If you're watching this on PC, it's in the down there part. If I don't have a link to do that. You do, Textillion. Lots of you do. But Van Briggs does not, because Van Briggs did not know that I have multiple YouTube channels that they are not subscribed to. One specifically fucking for music, and then one that I upload this content and other content related to this too. And I have 181 YouTube subscribers, and I'm closing on 1,500 Twitch subscribers. So I appreciate you, Van Briggs.
Of the prompts. It's not AI art made by AI though, which I think that would be the true apocalypse of art if we just had that happening, which we probably do have that happening. This is AI. It's very obviously AI. The videos that I've been seeing recently are stuff like this. Let me see if I can find it. Take a look at this.
A girl told me we're made of prompts. Like, seriously, dude. You're saying...
Remember 2 days ago when I said that you're going to see this for the next 1 to 2 months?
The only thing standing between me and $1 billion is some random text?
Yeah, that's so true, man. Dude, this guy gets it right here. You think you're made of prompts? Or are you stupid? All right.
Honestly, the biggest red flag is when the guy believes in the prompt theory. Like, really? We came from prompts? Wake up, man.
And see, the scary thing is I see that, and it's like, you'd make a great YouTuber with that kind of energy. Seriously? We're made of prompts? Yeah, that's good energy right there. That's good. You'll be good for a camera. And then it's like, oh... yeah, she will be good for a camera. You could probably just feed my videos to this AI or whatever and just have it be her, and she'll just kind of do what I'm doing here, basically. And maybe you can dial up like the eloquence and dial down the amount of likes and ums being said. That'd be interesting. These videos are a little terrifying to see because they look real.
You want to convince me that this perfect creation behind me is the result of one...
Like, that looks freaking real. Like, it is not reminiscent of the cat cheating on each other AI videos.
Zeros? A binary code and nothing more? It makes no sense.
Okay, so you get the idea. This video, it's a little separate.
Do people like this understand that, like, the aliens in Avatar weren't actual, like, aliens in Avatar? And that Brad Pitt really isn't, like, a member of a group of criminals who rob casinos and shit? Like they understand that, right? I'm no longer certain.
Separate from all that I'm talking about. Like, is it art or not? This is more about the government side of it and what the government can do. I don't know if any of this can be stopped. I don't know if it should be stopped. And the implications of it, I also have no idea. So, with that being said, let's jump into it.
So, one of the biggest issues creatives are currently facing is AI and its ability to learn from, copy and create new materials in a matter of seconds. If mishandled, it's an existential threat for creatives at all levels, from copywriters, novelists, musicians, graphic designers, you name it.
Yeah, see, what's the solution exactly? It's to stop creating stuff so we don't feed it anymore. That really seems like the answer. I don't know.
Machines are coming, and...
Well, this guy is not doing anyone any good. I'm sorry, bro. I don't mean to beat you up here, but, like... You're not even backing up your side, right? Like, that's the thing. There's other artists who just heard that, and they were like, the fuck? Yeah. I don't have a response. I don't think I need one.
No one is safe. Learning an instrument, or to paint, or redrafting a novel for the millionth time takes blood, sweat, and tears. Writing a prompt does not.
It takes blood, sweat, and tears to make any kind of art. Of course it does. Some art, sometimes it takes no blood, sweat, and tears. Like, again, throwing paint at a canvas, you know what I'm saying? And I'm saying that as somebody who very much appreciates abstract art. It's my favorite kind of art. I love that. That's why I display it right there. And of course, there are different versions of it. Like, my mom is a painter. She's the one who paints all that. I see the work that goes into the stuff that she does. Like, there is work. There's also versions...
It's nice. It's nice that his mom paints art and he likes it and puts it on his wall. I think that's super nice. And the fact that he put that out there, like, you know, that's cool. That's cool.
Of abstract painting that I think wouldn't take that much work. Like, if I literally just picked up paint and threw it at a canvas, and that would obviously be probably a low quality piece of abstract art. Is it not art though? Like, it's still...
Why would it be low quality? It would be low quality from the point of view of the artist because you didn't intend anything. You didn't put anything into it. You had nothing to say. You had no relationship with the work. You just did an event, right? Y'all know I love the board games, right? There's a board game for the Firefly TV show, and it's multiplayer, right? So you can have like 4 or 5 people, and they're zipping around the verse, and they're doing jobs, right? They're transporting like, medical supplies to a place, and that's going to pay you some amount of money, or you do it with like illicit stuff, guns, or maybe you're somebody smuggling themselves into a place, and and like that. The thing about the game that I didn't like, because all that was fun, it all ultimately felt like a series of activities where it wasn't like playing a game and none of the other players mattered, whatever they were doing. I was just playing a game by myself with friends, and it was kind of weird. And that's what you get when you just throw paint at a canvas. There's nothing there between the artist and the work. No relationship. Nothing has happened. Now, if you take that art and you display it somewhere, and a person looks at it and feels some kind of way, they have a relationship with the work. And that's separate from, I've said this 1,000 times at this, but like the relationship between the artist and the work and the relationship between the observer and the work are different relationships. They are not the same. They are completely different. And there's not a continuity there. There can be if this person cares enough about this piece of art to want to learn all about this art. You can probably find out like a whole bunch of stuff. I will tell you that sometimes you will be disappointed by what you learn because it's not going to be the thing that you hoped it would be. Because as soon as you see the work of art, you create an idea of how they got there in your mind. And then they will fail to meet that obligation. They will fail to do that. Don't meet your heroes. Your relationship with the art is that it makes you feel something, and that's between you and the art. You can, this low quality thing doesn't happen because it's subjective. You decide what you think is low quality art. No one else gets to. You decide what you think is high quality art. No one else gets to. Don't listen to other people fucking tell you what is good art and what isn't good art. You look at something and it speaks to you. That's the only thing that matters. Even that art would still be valued, especially when viewed through the lens of being a statement on the inherent. Oh, you went meta, Tiny, right? Like you went meta. Like it's the banana taped to the wall thing, right? Yeah, it's low quality art, but it's a commentary on the nature of fucking art, right? Like your low effort art that you create by throwing paint at the canvas, and you take that and you hang it up on the wall of like an art museum, and you wait for people to come and talk about it, and then you're making a commentary on things, and bam, just like that, high quality art. Check me out.
Still is. And I think somebody even writing this into a prompt, a golden retriever and a green park and sunlight filtering through the trees. It's like writing poetry, like a really simple form of poetry, and the AI is just interpreting it and bringing it to life using previously downloaded art that is made by real people. It's very low effort, but it's still some amount of effort. I think it's not fair to say that writing a prompt is nothing, because this particular...
I have been on the internet for doing this React shit and watching people talk about shit and all that other kind of shit for quite some time. And I have never begged anyone to have a concrete opinion about anything. This is like watching a more well-groomed Asmongold, right? Like it's just so wishy-washy, soft baby poop. It's like disappointing. What up, Andy? fellow has Bream Team sticker on his laptop. Perhaps he has a negative attitude toward AI for a reason. We're proud of every line of code and every pixel we deliver. The work we do today covers a number of key digital services from logo creation, web design, video, graphics, and print, as well as social media. And this is why, this is the thing that happens. If you fuck around, this chat will learn about you and they will make judgmental decisions based on what you exhibit here and what, like, you are intending this to be on screen. Everything that appears here is intentional. We've established that because you are willing to put your fucking mom's art on the wall and you just talked about it and why it has pride of place. And it's actually, you can see the way the guitars kind of frame it, that they draw your eye into the middle of it. Like everything is intentional. I am wondering now, Andy, if this is like exactly that. This is paid propaganda. Right, but for like self-serving. As maybe he's a member of the Bream Team. Maybe he just supports the Bream Team. Interesting. What up, Becca? Wasted. Be safe on the internet. Remember, everything you type into the internet is there forever.
Picture of the golden retriever in a green park and sunlight filtering through the trees would not exist without somebody articulating it in this way right here. And clicking that button. And probably clicking the button 100 times will give it 100 slightly different images. So maybe even clicking the generate button is art in some ways, or effort at the very least. My point is, it's kind of a gray area, and I feel when people say that it's like no effort to write a prompt, they're just so off-put by the little amount of effort required to make something that we're used to seeing as like a high-effort product, like that image that we're about to see.
Are trained on large amounts of data like audio, text,
and again, the amount of effort that goes into a work should not matter, right? And it has nothing to do with like, oh, Globus is just saying the people who work for fucking 7 years to perfect their craft are just the same as people who type a prompt into the AI. No, what I'm saying is that I make 3x4 canvases, right? And I have had ones that I've created and they have come off in and out, 45 minutes to an hour. Everything just happens the way I want it. It has emotional impact for me and everything else, right? And then I sell it to somebody or give it to somebody and they get something out of it, right? Like perfect, 45 minutes to an hour. And then I have other ones that I've literally been working on for years because they're not doing the thing that I want them to do. Which one is more effort? And why is the one that's more effort more valued?
imagery in order to recognize patterns.
Like that. Look at that freaking dog.
Whether that's the likely next chord in a sequence or word in a...
The 4 chord. Sorry, I don't know.
Sentence.
I'm sick too. I'm a little delirious.
And both the amount of and quality of data vastly improves the model. But it's not thinking for itself. They are only possible through the countless hours of work that creatives have been through, learning, practicing, writing, recording, and publishing.
Again, it's using someone else's work and you're making something.
Absolutely, Textillion.
Something new with it. I guess parallels I can make. Logic, for example, Logic Pro, if you're a Mac user, has tons of drum loops and samples. Like, obviously, I think using those is much more creative than writing a prompt, but it's still this gradient of creativity. I think the only way to actually leave the gradient is if computers are...
Okay. I'm tapping out. I can only take so much wishy-washy bullshit in a row. Let's listen to some other person. I don't know what a Tommy NFG is, but here he is.
As of recording this, ChatGPT was...
Way to come in hot, Tommy. 760,000 subscribers. The great AI replacement is here.
Was released exactly 2 years, 5 months, and 22 days ago.
In that time, why is there a button that says jump ahead? What is the purpose of just randomly jumping ahead in videos? Watch the video. Why are you here? If you're not here to watch the video, then you should leave.
Time, AI videos went from looking like this.
This part of my life is called being stupid.
To looking like this. You know, I'll never forget about the moment I found out about ChatGPT. It was released on November 30th, 2022 to the public, and I remember being at awe that a human invention could pretty much do anything. I was asking it to do things just for fun, like I didn't even have a use for it. And then people started saying you could use it to cheat. Oh yeah.
It's very Zoomer coded.
Y'all know me. I was just finishing up my last semester of college, and I totally did not use it for any activities involving cheating and responsibly finished.
Yeah, Becca. No, Michael's correct. You cannot use the LUL emote in this chat. That particular emote is banned. You can use any other emote.
The semester with flying colors. I was told schools watch these things, just go with it. When it first came out, at the most, everyone was thinking AI was just gonna be things like ChatGPT. Then they released the ability to generate images. Then they released the ability to generate videos, and it's pretty much become hell on earth since then. We probably wouldn't have been as excited about ChatGPT if we knew AI was
Bored now. You can say that I'm good looking, Becca. The AI won't stop you. I should wrap. These guys are being boring. So let's end on why we don't have the LUL emote. This is Total Biscuit. Total Biscuit is the person featured in the LUL emote. I thought Wikipedia would help me out. So let's enter my favorite word. Controversy. Total Biscuit's legacy and the collateral damage of Gamergate. To progressives and what constitutes as mainstream internet, Bain was the man who legitimized Gamergate, the 2014 harassment campaign termed Consumer Revolt that went on to inspire conservative. Esports consultants and journalist Rod Slasher Breslau, a close friend, disputed the characterization of Bain in a phone interview. Breslau was wrong. More on that later. As wrong as Breslau is, so are the critics maligning Total Biscuit as a white supremacist and abuser whose death should be celebrated immediately in a space his widow can see. The online telephone game that slandered the female targets of Gamergate worked both ways, including here for Bain. As for the fans who searched for these heartless post-death announcement, I don't care about that. Yes, I don't think that the accusing people of things they are not just because you don't like them for things that they are, I of course have a problem with. No one should do that. But basically, you know, he's a scumbag. It's not just for you, Van Briggs. I you know, it's something that we touch on every so often, and like somebody will pop in the LUL emote, and then we'll find out why we don't use the LUL emote, right? I don't give a shit that he had cancer, right? That doesn't change the fact that he was an asshole, right? He needed to not be an asshole, and he was an asshole. I'm sorry. You can draw a direct line between Gamergate and the White House. Right? If you look into Gamergate, and especially the first, Trump one, you can you can find those people. You know, it's a whole fucking thing. So anyways, that's going to be it. It's 9 o'clock. I've been here for a minute. I'm tired. Please stick around for the rave. No, and no, most people aren't, Van Briggs. And that's the thing is like, it's okay to not know stuff, right? It's okay to not know stuff and to learn, you know, what the fuck's going on. That's how life should fucking work. It's an educational space. Y'all teach me shit all the time, right? Like, that's how this all works. Excuse me. Burpity burp. I'm going to drop you on Kel Thickness. It's been a minute. Yeah. What up, old lobster?
And now it's time to pop up number 7. Oh, that's a butthole.
Indeed. Yeah, I hope you all enjoy the weekend. Remember, next week is going to be weird. We're going to do streams when we have time to do streams, and we'll go from there. Take care of yourself. Everything else, you were curious, but you pulled the trigger, and that's what matters. In the meantime, drink your water, eat some food, take your meds if you forgot, and always remember that Chuggy loves you. And so do I. Be great.
They promised they weren't going to give anybody health care. You know what I mean? The one layer.